In a world where beasts and humans coexist, creatures that can be tamed and have the power to destroy the sky and the earth, and at the top of this place, there is a man named Su Liang, who received the favor of the lunar butterfly. It is an extremely rare beast that only exists in legends and can go back in time. In the boy's eyes, you can see the favor he received from the gods. And so he received the title of Lunar King and is admired by everyone. In an ordinary house, there is a boy on his computer. The Lunar King attracts a lot of attention and is on top of the world for those who are his followers. However, the boy is sweating cold, saying that the only thing more incredible than this is that he, Su Liang, is the so-called Lunar King. He's so crazy because he just transmigrated to this world. Originally, he was from Earth, and as soon as he arrived, he received fragments of the owner's memory. It seems that the real Lunar King was sleeping, fell out of bed, and hit his head. The protagonist thinks it would be amazing if he really had become the so-called Lunar King, but he asks to open the status window and sees that he is nothing more than a one-star tamer. His companion is the shimmering beast with the power of moonlight. He starts cursing the system because he knows very well that this butterfly is nothing legendary. The problem is that everyone has a lot of expectations for this boy. How is he going to handle all this pressure? Not to mention that the original owner of the body drew a lot of attention and everyone believed he was strong. He told everyone that he possessed the reincarnation butterfly that only appeared in dangerous situations. When he performed, the girls went crazy, saying he was amazing and handsome. Even face-to-face with the 8-star Empress Kanyu, the guy didn't back down. Our protagonist has no idea how this guy was so crazy. He decides to let it go and takes a look at his beast. The so-called shimmering butterfly appears. In his eyes, traces of the gods can still be seen. And when it approaches his face, he says it is cute, but his expression quickly changes upon realizing how useless it is. He knows that a great battle awaits him in 3 years, but the bigger problem is that he can't even beat the people at the academy. If he doesn't at least get a hack in the system, it will be impossible for him to attain the title of Lunar Emperor. That's when he remembers a memory from the body's previous owner and wonders if he also has it. He pronounces Lunar Book, and the item appears in his hands. Looking at it, he is impressed, wondering if they are illustrations. On the first page, several moon-related low-ranking creatures can be seen. When he combines all of them from one page, he can get a new one as if it were a card game. It seems the previous owner didn't care about this book because it said the lunar butterfly was weak. He thinks the guy was kind of stupid. However, now he is motivated since he will study at the Lunar Light Academy, a place where it will be easy to find this type of creature. Leaving the room, he knows he cannot get into fights and must focus on getting stronger for the next 3 years. In the advanced dormitory for tamers, a little bunny is being fed and someone says it's to help it grow a lot. Then a girl in red clothes named Su Jing tells her to stop mingling with weak creatures or they will get attached to her. The girl named Bei Yor says she won't make a contract with the bunny, she's just having fun. However, Su Jing says that as one of the elites, she can't be around weak creatures or strong ones won't want to make a contract with her. She enthusiastically says that the girl must be like the Lunar King who only touches extremely strong creatures. That's when something catches the bunny's attention. While the girl says she is sure the lunar butterfly is only with the king because he doesn't smell like a weak creature. At that moment, the rabbit runs to someone's feet. When they look to the side, they are shocked. They see the Lunar King all stylish and blush. To them, those eyes are full of oppression. The two think that just one look from him can make anyone submissive, but in fact, he's just scared because he's seeing a girl with cat ears. At that moment, he starts to remember that the Lunar King avoided contact with anyone. He goes to the Mood Pavilion. Looking up, he knows it's a place with many low-level creatures. If he can unlock several in the book, he will get new ones. Walking around, he sees some particles and touches one of them. Then it appears that new beasts and illustrations have been unlocked. From the moon element itself to a juvenile fox, a shadow rat, and even a moonlight fish. Su Liang is impressed that he can also see battle information, and now he's excited because the sly guy has a hack. Something catches the fox's attention and Su Liang stands still. He finds himself face to face with a large door. He feels that the place emanates a cold energy and that all the creatures seem to move away. Slowly, he opens the door, and in the center of the room, something catches his attention. On top of the altar is an albino deer with a purple horn. The creature is all graceful as Su Liang approaches. The system warns that this is the white flower deer, the most beautiful creature of all the mid-ranking creatures, and that it is also extremely selective with whom they associate. Our boy thinks the system is exaggerating with this information, while the guys next to him say it's ridiculous to spend so much money to support a mid-ranking creature. They comment that they've never seen another beast treated like this. The guy with brown hair comments that maybe it's because of the appearance, and at that moment, the deer looks back. The boy says it's just because the rich like to show off. When suddenly he gets a water jet on his head and gets all confused. The deer stares at the two, and they run away. One of them comments that mid-ranking creatures have intelligence similar to humans, so it's better to get out of there. The protagonist, observing the creature, thinks that what the guy said really makes sense, until their eyes meet. Something catches the creature's attention as it thinks about the eyes he has. She approaches and starts walking around him. Gets very close to his eye and starts staring. All of a sudden, the lunar book appears in his hand, with the message that a new beast was unlocked and the number of illustrations increased. That's when something catches Su Liang's attention. That wasn't a mid-ranking creature, but a supreme-ranking creature capable of destroying a kingdom. A type of monster with more consciousness and intelligence than any human and that dominates all animals. That thing is basically a nuclear bomb in the middle of the academy. If that creature decides to do anything, this whole place is destroyed. That's when he comes to the conclusion that if she is there, it means the academy knows she won't harm anyone. And since those guys were expelled just by being splashed with water, apparently she has no intention of doing harm. However, he also can't rule out the possibility that she is hiding her strength from everyone, unlike him, who everyone thinks is strong, but is actually extremely weak. He looks at her, who is looking at the plaque that says she is a mid-ranking creature. They stare at each other. He knows very well that she is aware she is deceiving everyone, but then he gets startled. She shifts to an aggressive stance, and he imagines she's afraid of her identity being exposed. With that, he starts speaking loudly, saying that this mid-ranking creature is so beautiful that he couldn't move. He knows that the most important thing for now is not to become an enemy of something like that. He decides to walk around pretending to admire other things, until the door closes and he runs out of the place. While the deer stands there, remembering our boy's eyes and wondering who he was to have those eyes. She goes to her bed and pulls out a phone with the wallpaper of a female deer. She searches for a boy in the city with crescent moon eyes, and she gets startled upon discovering something. Meanwhile, in the tamer's dormitory, he is exhausted, wondering how the school dares to keep a T-Rex in the middle of the zoo. Even worse, since despite that appearance, that creature is much more dangerous than a dinosaur. Luckily, he met her there because if it were in the wild, he would need another supreme-ranking beast to get out alive. And the worst part is that his creatures are the lowest of the lowest rankings. That's when he realizes that the creatures he touched are the ones he can see the abilities of, and he gives a silly speech saying that everything is in the palm of his hand. He decides to go back to confirm this with another beast from the academy. However, on the way he sees that rabbit and wonders if it's the same one he saw in the morning. He finds it strange that the creature is so calm because lunar monsters are usually more active at night. The rabbit is looking all cute and calm at him, and the protagonist wonders if it's another extremely powerful creature by chance. He calmly decides to touch it to get information. As soon as he touches the creature, nothing happens, and he discovers that it's a creature that doesn't have a lunar physique. This means it can only strengthen on a full moon night, and he realizes that it's weaker than low-ranking creatures. He thinks he was an idiot for thinking he would find two extremely strong monsters. That's when someone drops some food and a phone falls to the ground. Something catches the protagonist's attention, and he doesn't know that he's being watched by Bei Yor. She wonders if she is really seeing the Lunar King petting a weak creature. With that, she returns to the dormitory. Su Jing asks what happened, and the cat girl questions what the chances are that the Lunar King actually likes small monsters. Her friend is confused by this sudden question, but then she runs off, saying she was just kidding. Upon entering her room, she starts thinking about it, remembering the gentle expression the Lunar King had with the little rabbit, and she wonders in a very gentle and well-behaved way if she was the only one who knew that side of the Lunar King. Su Liang knows he was seen doing that, but he doesn't seem to care much, thinking the girls might like it. He decides to go to his room because it's time to sleep. However, something catches his attention. At the window, there's an extremely dangerous demon. He gets scared since he has no idea who this terrifying creature is. The problem is that it might not be a human, but a humanoid beast. The most important thing is that he feels oppressed. As she approaches, he can't even comprehend her strength, until suddenly she kneels in front of him and gives her greetings to the Lunar King and the Lunar God. He starts looking through his memories, realizing he should know her. He knows she's one of the 4 moons that belong to the order he created. However, he doesn't know exactly who she is standing in front of him. He doesn't say anything, and the poor girl is sweating cold, thinking that even the Lunar King's silence is scary. He has no idea what her name is, so he just asks what she wants. The girl says that the Black Lunar Order is very active in the central region, especially near the Palace of the Gods. Zulian, who has no idea what she's talking about, he turns his back and she asks what the problem is. Our boy tells her to be quiet because he's trying to remember things. After a while, he looked up everything he needed on the internet and says he remembered. Now he realizes that it's not that he didn't know. It's that the owner of the body didn't care about it. She tries to explain that the Black Lunar Order is not a problem. The problem is the Palace of the Gods getting involved. That name, yes, catches the protagonist's attention. The Lunar Palace of the Gods is a place that houses thousands of legendary beasts. However, although they have been strong for 1,000 years, the Order of the Double Moon changed everything in the last 3. He explains that the Order of the 4 Moons wants to attack. The only problem is that there will be no one to defend him. Zulian remains silent and says that she can move forward since there is no danger when he is under the moonlight. The girl gets excited, saying she understood very well. Here's a famous phrase from the Lunar God, and everyone believes that because of the butterfly, he is not at any risk. With that, she leaves and our boy remains silent. He has no idea how the owner had the courage to say such cringe things. The worst part is that he would walk around saying random phrases. However, because of the crazy followers, these phrases started to become famous. Out of nowhere, he would turn and say he felt the presence of the lunar god, or that the moon favored him, or that the moon would rise and that the moon was bright. He is lost because he just transmigrated and has all these problems in his head. At least it seems he doesn't have to worry about the palace of the moonlight. The only problem is that he doesn't have the real butterfly, so he is basically without any bodyguard. If he gets attacked in this situation, he will die in a foolish way. That's when he remembers something. After having unlocked so many creatures in a book, he can at least get a new one. It states that he can initiate the first exchange and he gets excited. The system warns that the creature he receives is by chance. As soon as it appears, he can register it as a creature or return it to the system and receive some attributes. Our boy gets excited because this way he will be able to strengthen himself and not just have creatures. However, he is anxious to get at least a supreme ranking 1 and no longer fear anything. With that, he begins to pray to all the gods that exist. Excited, he says he will seek the supreme beast. He clicks the button. Energy flows from the book and a light blinds him. The pages start to turn and the system warns that a creature has been unlocked. He is anxious until he receives a translucent moonlight. It's a high-ranking creature, but it seems to have support abilities. He knows that for other people, this would be a good creature. However, he is the lunar god, so something like this doesn't make much difference. Considering the crisis he is involved in, it can't be solved with just a high-ranking creature, and so he returns it to the book. The system warns that he will be rewarded with the creature's strength, gaining enough experience to become a 1-star tamer and almost reach 2 stars. He gets excited for a second, and then immediately feels disheartened because he knows it makes no difference. He is angry that the previous owner of this body could have made contracts with several strong monsters. However, he chose not to do any of that to stay with the butterfly. That's when, before going to sleep, he realizes he made a foolish decision. Even though the creature wasn't strong, it was better than the butterfly he has now. That kind of decision seems strange to him, and our boy questions whether his actions and personality are still influenced by the other guy who owned this body. That's when he shakes his head, saying he's going crazy for believing anything from that guy. He throws himself on the bed, saying that next time he gets a high-ranked beast, he will make a contract. At least tomorrow he can go to the pavilion to gain more experience points and collect everything he missed. Remembering the white deer, he comes up with a plan to bring something to see if he can touch her. The next morning, the deer wakes up and gets startled. The whole place is empty. She wonders if it's going to be demolished, and a girl approaches, saying that when she goes to the palace of the gods, she will live a better life. She seems sad and tells the deer to obey her new owners. The poor deer is scared that she was sold, especially to the palace of the lunar god. Walking around, 2 girls dressed appropriately for work say it's ridiculous that the lunar god studies there. The blue-haired girl tells the other not to cause trouble and to focus on the mission. She turns, saying she knows they're only there to take the white flower deer. Then a green-haired girl named Sing, he introduces herself as the owner of the pavilion. The 2 women introduce themselves, saying the night is eternal, which makes King he think these 2 are very arrogant. She turns and tells them to come in to see the creature. However, the blue-haired one says she has already seen it online and just to bring it quickly, as they will pay 10 times the price. That leaves Kingy startled. Knowing that the white deer is extremely rare, she decides to take advantage of the opportunity and says that this white deer is a descendant of the original creature of the pavilion owner. That's why they have been treating her as a supreme creature, and 10 times the price is not enough. The red-haired girl says that being a descendant doesn't change the fact that she is a mid-ranking creature. But her sister tells her to shut up and asks if 20 times the price would be enough. That surprises the sister and interests the pavilion owner. However, the red-haired girl approaches her sister and says that 20 times is beyond the money they have. But the blue-haired girl has a creature called the Moon's Voice that is warning about a great danger that is about to arrive. They need this creature to protect the palace of the gods, and that's why she's willing to increase the price even more. But at that moment, she feels something, a pressure that would crush anyone. She knows that the only being capable of doing that is the Lunar King who is approaching. She starts trembling, wondering why he is there at the pavilion, and her red-haired sister can't even react. She realizes that the girl's sanity has been shattered. She keeps trying to communicate, telling her not to look him in the eye. However, she turns, gets startled, and faints. She stands there very calm and composed, saying she saw him up close. Su Liang approaches the 2 and gives them a stare. With that, they bow their heads while he stands there. The poor girl feels she doesn't have the courage to raise her head. It's as if she were trying to go against the presence of a true god, while the 2 are terrified that he might do something to them. He's there, not knowing what to say and not understanding why no one is moving, until King he comes running and calls for him. She approaches, saying it's an honor to see his face in person. She shows a tattoo on her arm, saying that 3 months ago, she joined the Brotherhood of the Double Moon. With that, she explains that those girls are messengers from the palace of the lunar god, who are there to buy the deer, while she comments that she wants to sell it for an extremely high price because of his bloodline. And because it is beautiful, Su Liang is struck by the realization that no one has any idea how powerful That creature is something so rare cannot be sold for any amount of money. With that, he turns and the sisters finally relax, until he tells them to disappear because that was not a place for their kind. He says the moon is about to fall. King, he looks at the sky, thinking it's too early, there is no moon yet. However, she interprets it as if he were saying the moon was literally going to fall. In other words, it was a premonition of a disaster that was about to happen. The blue-haired sister realizes that he seems to know everything that is happening with the Palace of the Gods, when suddenly the redhead decides to say that the moon is not really going to fall. However, she stammers with her words. The crowd says she shouldn't speak against the person chosen by the moon god himself. And at that moment, she is startled when our boy is just staring with his moonlit eyes. She starts trembling and he walks away. She falls into the arms of her sister, who thinks that if the moon god is involved, they will have to forget about that creature. However, as soon as he starts to leave, he knows he spoke about impending calamity. While King, he remembers that the girls said the moon would never fall. Seeing the humiliation that girls received from the king, she says they indeed fell long ago, and the only eternal moon is the one the Moon King sees. Our guy finally relaxes, thinking everyone believes he has some power and has his advantages. He doesn't know when he will be exposed, but at least for now, the deer must be calm. Meanwhile, the staff is emptying the hall. The deer is there, telling them to stop taking all their things, and the people are confused by this attitude. The blonde girl gets emotional, saying that apparently she doesn't want to let go of the caregiver. She hugs her head, saying she is beautiful, and that she will visit her while the deer just wants her to let go. The woman goes to her bed, saying that that too has to be removed. However, underneath everything, she finds a cell phone, magazine, and mirror and wonders why a beast has those things. The deer is scared, saying her history will be exposed. She comes to research a lot of things about the Moon King. With that, she gets angry, saying she'll have to protect that, and decides to turn into a demon jumping towards the woman. The cell phone is thrown away and falls right into someone's hand. When she turns around, she gets scared. Our boy is at the door and everyone recognizes him. Now she's worried, knowing it was the person who couldn't see that. As soon as he takes a look, he gets scared. The deer went to hide while he sees she was reading some manhwas about beasts and humans. This is going down the forbidden path, but hey, the Chinese man are unstoppable. Su Lang then throws the phone away, saying the sale is cancelled and everyone should leave. And he warns that at sunset, the people from the double moon will send someone to buy this place. People are shocked that he wants to buy the whole place. However, Su Lang is excited. The strategy was to get several low-ranking creatures, but who would have imagined that he would have the chance to get one the supreme rank? In this case, the best strategy is a tactical retreat. People are all confused about what's going on there and comment that no one imagined that the Moon King himself would cancel everything. The woman, on the other hand, says she's more curious about what was on that phone that the king looked at. However, at that moment, the deer goes there and grabs it with her mouth and runs away. She passes by all the beasts, thinking that this damn king heard her entire identity, and even the history. He's trying to escape, but she's not going to let him leave this pavilion. With that, she commands him to stop and says she knows very well that he saw everything. Listening to her voice, he realizes it's a girl, and now that reading makes sense. She warns that if he reveals the secret to anyone, she won't let him go. Seeing him stop, she wonders if she managed to at least threaten him. However, Su Lang says she doesn't need to worry about intimate secrets being revealed. She looks peculiarly scared when he mentions that she caught his attention. However, she replies that she's not afraid just because he's the Moon King. If he tells anyone, she'll run wherever he is and finish him off. Su Lang knows that creatures can sense when their names are spoken nearby, a skill all supreme-level creatures possess. He then asks if she'll appear next to him every time he mentions her name. She angrily shouts yes. However, she ends up wondering why he spoke like that. With that, all romantic, he approaches, saying it's their secret, gives a little smile, and leaves, saying she should remember that. However, before he leaves, she tells him to wait and warns him to be careful with the full moon. Su Lang turns around and says he understands, then leaves. She stands there thinking about what he said. Su Lang is sweating, wondering if he managed to deceive a supreme beast. I'm sweating that this supreme beast doesn't turn into a woman soon, for God's sake. However, he smiles when he realizes her biggest concern is having her history exposed. The only thing he finds strange is this information about being cautious with the full moon. If she believes he's the moon god and said that something strange is indeed happening. Back at home, he wonders what will happen next. And the biggest problem is that he's without any bodyguards. If that's the case, the most important thing is to increase his team. Meanwhile, at the Lunar God's palace, a place known to be ruled by the 10 princesses. Following the work, I'm sure they're all ugly and extremely thin. Number 4, who clearly lives up to what I said, asks if the king really said those words. The girls say yes, and she says they should just adjust and prepare then. However, the other women at the table start cursing, saying she's wrong. One in red armor says his appearance at the pavilion shows there's something there. They all conclude that there must be at least one monarch-ranking creature. And one who is bald says apparently something is about to happen that not even the Lunar Palace will survive. People want to know if the 4th princess will cooperate with them. She questions if they really believe that when he signs a contract with the monarch, they'll still beat him. No one responds, and she asks if they are afraid. until apparently it wasn't a woman. A guy says not only the Moon King is favored by the moonlight. After Su Lang used all of his group's money to buy beasts from the academy, people from the north started questioning what he was up to. Most thought he would absorb weak creatures to regain his energy, a sign that the monster inside him was about to awaken. Because of these rumors, people in the north were very uneasy. However, the person they feared so much was in the room playing gacha, releasing new creatures. I want to know why he released Peppa Pig. At least he's excited to have received a high-ranking creature. Even with the pavilion's help, that's all he's been able to receive. Low or medium-ranking creatures are useless for anything other than trading for points. And even though he said he would accept a contract with the next high-ranking creature, this moon in the lake seems to be a support type. The body's owner has no memory, and there's nothing about her on the internet. He finds it bizarre that there are patches that aren't in the encyclopedia yet. Knowing he received the letter, he decides to take a look at the lunar book. The book explains that this creature has the ability to absorb any shock or fluctuation and store all energy within it. He's impressed that she apparently is 13,000 years old. This means she's older than the lunar palace itself. That's why there's no information about her in the current encyclopedia. But that's where he gets an idea. If it's a creature no one knows, he doesn't need to worry about people thinking it's weak. Since the information was lost, no one will have any idea if she is strong enough to be a creature of the king. And in the end, for him who can't fight, maybe this ability is good. With that, he decides to close his eyes and sign the contract. He tells the sparkling butterfly to return, and the next second, he finds himself in a lake. Below him, her reflection is in the water, and he feels a different sensation from other high-ranking creatures. Now this is his second pet, and he hopes it will at least help with something, especially since the night of the full moon is approaching. On that night, a guy watched the moon and wondered why he was chosen to patrol there. He received information that the Moon King would make a move that day and was confused. However, as he was considered the best tamer of the Black Moon, he had no choice. However, observing the protagonist's house from afar, he was afraid of being noticed and dying the next second. Meanwhile, our boy was returning from the pet's consciousness. The butterfly seemed excited and the lake girl seemed to be asleep. Since it was the night of the full moon, he decided to go out and see what was happening. As soon as he left his room, he saw everyone running and calling for their pets. He was confused, but soon noticed it had something to do with the danger of that day. At that moment, an explosion occurred and the whole place shook. He approached the window, wondering what it was. From afar, smoke was rising. At least he smiled, realizing he wasn't the target of it. The guy who had been watching him was lying on the ground, attacked. He couldn't believe it. It was supposed to be just a simple lunar rabbit. However, it was gigantic and had a powerful aura. The rabbit looked to the side, saw the guy, and moved to strike. He noticed in time, and the attack exploded another place. In the dormitory, everyone was scared. Meanwhile, Sol Yang wanted to understand why this was happening. In another part, several creatures were running in the pavilion. They stopped in front of a door. From inside, the white deer shouted, asking what was happening in the middle of the night, and ordered the creatures to go back to their beds. The organizer was there, frightened by all this mess, while the deer lay in bed wondering if he would really call for her tonight. In the middle of the city, the rabbit was there fighting the guy. He disappeared and suddenly started laughing, saying she actually had some power. He had summoned 2 pets, saying he didn't want to use them against her. He warned her to be careful because if the Moon King got angry, she could be killed. However, she didn't seem to care and went towards him. He used the 2 pets to protect himself, and the barrage swept through the city. The 2 creatures were torn apart, but the skin absorbed the debris, and the next second they were back. The guy realized the rabbit was strong but slow and not very intelligent. Seeing that his pets didn't die, they certainly weren't of a supreme rank. And if the Moon King hadn't appeared, it seemed she wasn't involved with him. With that, he jumped from the creatures and allowed them to absorb moonlight. They merged and transformed into a black fish with lunar eyes. Immediately, he felt a pain in his chest and told them to stop absorbing. This is because any tamer has to be careful how much energy their pets absorb or they'll explode themselves. However, he was excited. At least now he could test maximum power against some creature. With that, he stretched out his hand and said it wasn't just her who entered berserker mode under the full moon. A shark attacked, and the attack once again exploded across the entire city. Meanwhile, the teachers were taking the students to shelters. There, they were wondering who had the courage to attack the academy and why. Another commented it was ridiculous considering everyone knows the Moon King resides there. At that moment, he came running by. The woman told the student to wait until she noticed it was the Moon King himself. He just turned around looking disheveled and said the moon was about to rise. Strangely enough, even though he only had a crossbow, he was confident about the moon's light. It seemed that his body really reacted differently in this situation. The previous owner might have said something like, "The eyes of the moon are upon him." The shark guy was there in the middle of the city. He was sure that the attack had been enough. However, his monster seemed to be in agony, and he was startled. The rabbit had risen, and he couldn't believe she had resisted. While the rabbit stared at him, frightened, someone commented that it was very scary. It was Baeyur, saying she really wanted to watch this while her friend said it was too risky. However, she said she was in the dormitory to see this kind of fight anyway, until she got a slap on the head. She ended up with a bump on her head, but wondered why that creature seemed familiar. Su Jing said it was at least a mid-ranked rabbit monster. The strange thing was its size. They both were startled. The rabbit grabbed the shark by the ears and slammed it to the ground. The Black Moon guy realized his creature was going to lose and authorized using a technique called Moon Devour. The monster roared into the sky and a pressure hit the rabbit, leaving her all twisted. The guy smiled, saying that this was impossible to beat. However, the rabbit seemed to be absorbing the energy she had sent out. The guy realized that if a creature that size still had a technique, it wouldn't be possible to win. Bai Yuer seemed impressed, and Su Jing told her to get out of there. With that, she threw her to the ground and called the fox to create a shield for the two. The creature let out a roar, creating an explosion that shook the entire city. Man, it was atomic. When the smoke cleared, the little shark had disintegrated, but the place had indeed been desolated. The rabbit noticed something, and nearby, the barrier around the two had fallen. Su Jing commented that that's why they had survived. Bai Yuer had also summoned her creature. Seeing it staring, she ran to the tiger and told it to stop, drawing the rabbit's attention. However, the rabbit was just staring at the three of them, who already thought everything was over. Strangely, it stood still. Su Jing wondered why the creature wasn't moving. She noticed it seemed to be looking directly at Bai Yuer. With that, the monster went to the rubble and pulled the guy out of everything. The guy was angry, asking if that was a high-ranked creature, and told it to let him go because the Moon King should be coming. The rabbit slammed him to the ground and was about to crush him. Bai Yuer wanted to stop the creature, but Su Jing said they shouldn't get involved. However, the girl replied that it was wrong to let the guy die just like that. Su Jing told her to at least be a bit careful. When she was gathering the courage to approach, someone told her to stay put. At that moment, she called upon the name of the moon god. And our boy, all stylish, said that this was not a fight for her and walked away, saying the moonlight would converge. A bunch of circles formed around him, and they wondered if he was even human. Sol Yang found himself under the rabbit. He knew the size and shape of that creature didn't match any supreme creature. This meant there was only one possibility. 10 minutes earlier, when everything happened, he was just observing. He was sure it was impossible to win against that. Even a 4-star creature had been destroyed in a second. The plan was to at least touch it to see its rank, but it was too risky, so maybe it was better to give up. However, he realized the monster wasn't attacking anyone. He knew it was impossible for a creature to be both high-ranked and irrational at the same time. Considering all this, he approached knowing there was only one possibility. The fool lying on the ground thought that since he had been killed, he had received some sort of favor. However, Sol Yang just collected the body and told them to take it away. With that, he left, and Sol Yang found himself face to face with the rabbit. He then said it was impossible for a creature to go berserk in the moonlight and still remain conscious. This meant it was a common monster acting on instinct, and only low-level creatures act on instinct. He then extended his hand and asked if she was looking for him. From afar, the two girls wondered what this madman was doing, and Bai Yuer told him to be careful. The rabbit was going to charge at him, and they thought the poor guy would be crushed. He was confident in his conclusion, but still hesitant. At that moment, a drop fell into the lake. The creature's attack seemed to have ceased, and he was embraced by the girl from the lake. Everyone saw it, and the guy lying on the ground was sure it was one of the mysterious ancient creatures, something he had seen in the Black Moon intelligence books. He slowly opened his eyes and got excited when he realized he had managed to stop the attack. The problem was that the girl from the lake wouldn't be able to absorb another attack like that. At least now, knowing what the creature was, he was sure he didn't need to worry anymore. He already knew very well who it was. That's why he didn't attack Bai Yuer. And since he doesn't have a lunar body, he ends up absorbing all the power of the moon without being able to control it. Suddenly, a group approached, asking if they were late. The guy on the ground said they weren't late. It's just that their arrival now was insignificant. The Moon King had awakened, which meant everyone was going to die. The people seemed scared. Noticing everything, Sol Yang knew he had to convince them to fear the boy. He asked the rabbit if she was there for him, and she immediately lowered her head. The people seemed confused, and he told her he would guarantee the moon power she so desired. He got even closer and said he would meet her at the place they first met. She agreed, turned, and left. The guy on the ground got up angrily. He had been beaten and hadn't even seen the king's power. He then told the Moon King that he had been attacked by the rabbit, so why tolerate it? However, he just turned and asked if that had really been an attack. The guy was impressed that his eye changed according to the moon. He just hoped he wouldn't fall in love as well. The poor guy started to remember everything he saw and fell to the ground, thinking he had seen the true emperor. His motivation was gone. It was time to go back because he had no other option. A strange figure told him to keep disguising himself in the northern region. With that, he woke up in bed and realized he was in the academy hospital. That was a way for the high-ranking people to send messages in dreams, which meant everything had been true. The problem was that he had no idea how he would deal with the Moon King. Meanwhile, in his room, the protagonist woke up with that little rabbit staring at him. He was startled and asked what she was doing there. That's when he remembered he had ended up making a pact with that boy. After everyone left, he returned to the place he first met her, since that creature always transformed on the full moon, and it was too risky to leave her wandering around. And so he made the pact. However, that panel with two creatures under the rank didn't seem worthy of a king. At least now he felt safer on full moon nights. But seeing her all cute at his feet, he thought maybe not that safe after all. He decided it was time to go to the pavilion. However, when he opened the door, everyone was running and he was confused. Some girls were talking about trying to make a pact with a supreme rank creature. He was scared and searched the internet. There he saw that a spear known as the Crescent Moon was the only supreme type and had fallen today in the northern region. The problem was that it was so difficult to tame that even the Empress or the 10 Moons couldn't do it. As he walked around, he was being observed without any idea. The pursuers were impressed. He was heading in the opposite direction of the spear, ignoring the opportunity. However, our boy had no intention of trying. He would embarrass himself in front of hundreds of people, or worse, the weapon itself would defeat him with its energy. Not to mention, he had something much easier, much closer. The white flower was lying in her room until the door opened. She turned around and he said hi, mentioning it had been a while since they last saw each other. She asked what he was doing there, and if he wasn't going to check out the Crescent Moon. Su Lang said she must be addicted to the internet to already know about it. She said she didn't even need the internet to feel the item's arrival and questioned if it wouldn't be bad if someone else got it. However, he said he wasn't very interested because having a pet was much cuter. With that, he took something out of his pocket and handed it to her. She asked if it was some special and extremely expensive food. He said it was almost that, but actually he had almost infinite amounts of it from the system because the previous owner never spent anything. She took it and stored it in a jar, making him ask if she didn't like the gift. However, she responded that she only liked to eat when watching a movie or reading a novel. He got confused and said he was leaving to avoid risking revealing her identity. Then he remembered there was another way to communicate and asked if she could add him as a friend. She said yes, and his phone rang immediately. There appeared the photo of a girl with white hair and a purple horn. He knew this name was the same as the Academy's founder from hundreds of years ago, and clearly, she was a direct ancestor. The question remained if she would have that appearance when in human form. She asked if there was any problem, and he said no, that he'd come back tomorrow. This warrior could soon turn into a woman to stop being a deer with a red face. 3 days passed, and the Moon King showed no interest in that spear. Because of that, the line to the item kept growing. The girl slammed the table, saying it was foolish for them to be there and warned them to sign the responsibility waiver because if they died, it wouldn't be her fault. She said she was tired of being there until the black whale guy appeared, and she asked if he had improved. He said yes and offered to take care of it so she could relax a bit. She said if that was the case, she would leave it to him then, while thinking that if he wanted the spear, he better forget it. The girls approached and asked the black whale guy if he felt better. He said he had already recovered while thinking about someone's arrival. He knew the dream had sent a message and wanted to see the person's image. Then a girl in a black cloak approached. As she handed over the form, he saw a tattoo on her hand. She looks for a second, and he stands there trembling, sure that it is she who was sent. In another region, someone is curious about the beasts sent from the stars. A completely blue girl says the aura is stunning and that now that she has seen it, she is impressed. A blonde guy behind her asks if she finally understands. If a creature not from the light of the moon enters that place, it will be instantly destroyed. 2 other women there say it's a foolish dream. The blue girl says she understands. She will send other members of the order there but will keep an eye on the fools who go. When she leaves, the other women say she is repulsive. The blonde guy approaches and tells them to calm down, that they need to choose who will enter that place. He explains that entering with a supreme ranking creature would make the spear resist. This means that only beasts below the supreme rank and those favored have any chance. The redhead wonders if this is the reason why the Lunar King has not gone there. When someone behind says they have arrived, they turn and seem worried. All the cadets are eager to try, but they know it is dangerous. The girl looks at the blue girl, who stares back. She then announces to everyone that they will enter the Crescent Moon domain. First, the consciousness of that item is almost invincible. Second, if it awakens and attacks, basically everything will be disintegrated. Our boy is there getting the information too, that although it has life, it cannot communicate. The white flower is sending a message explaining that it is better for all these people to give up. And our boy finds it ridiculous that a sleeping item will kill everyone who gets close. He asks if the item never wakes up, and the white flower says yes, but not on its own. She asks if he is not going to try, and the poor guy wonders why he would do something so risky. If anything went wrong, it would destroy his image for everyone. Then he seems to have an idea and stands up. Among the cadets, the girl is there in disguise, noticing that the Lunar King is not around. Touching the mountain, she says that if it is what she thinks, there is a chance to win. And as soon as she obtains the Crescent Moon, she will kill all the tamers in that area, so that no information spreads. She receives a message on her cell phone and discovers that the Lunar King is heading that way. She gets confused, wondering why this is happening right now. When the instructor asks what she is doing with the communicator, saying that if she gets distracted there, she will end up dying without even realizing it. The girl just looks and then leans in, apologizing. The girl then leaves, saying it is good for her to go back and give up on this. However, the other girl thinks that as soon as she gets the Crescent Moon, she will torture her to death. The instructor explains to everyone that they will receive teleportation stones. The moment they are broken, they are taken out from inside. And she explains that if they see the Crescent Moon awakening, they should get out right away or they will end up dying. The one is there just thinking that as soon as the king arrives, things will get complicated. Meanwhile, the blue-haired girl thinks it's ridiculous for them to try something like this, especially since Empress Kang Yu herself tried and failed. Seeing that there are a bunch of 3-star tamers, she finds it impossible. However, she notices something strange. The girl had her back turned and turned around at the same moment. She felt something and hid behind the tree instantly, wondering why there was a master tamer in the middle of the academy. Meanwhile, people started crossing the barrier. The woman thought she had to resolve this before the Moon King arrived. It was then that the blue-haired girl called out to Yu, who was the instructor. She said that only the Moon King could do something and asked why there were so many weak people there. Yu asked why she didn't try to tame this supreme-level creature. They stared at each other, and the blue-haired girl realized the instructor seemed unaware of the other girl. That's when everyone turned around. The Moon King was arriving and they wanted to know what he was doing there. Yu asked if he was going to try to tame the creature, and the others questioned that he might end up awakening the weapon. However, the instructor said they were ignorant and that if he was there, it was because he was sure he could tame it. In reality, Su Lang just wanted to touch the book to see if it would release her. But as soon as his foot touched the barrier, the book updated immediately. Something called Silent Libra of Supreme Rank appeared, an extremely strong and rare attribute that lower-ranked beasts couldn't even sense. Su Lang was excited that it was something of the supreme rank, but immediately withdrew his foot. He seemed to be hesitating, and people were wondering why he stopped there. He pulled out his phone, and they were confused. Yu then asked if he had a problem, and he smiled, questioning why she let the Black Moon insects enter that place. People were surprised, and he walked in saying that from now on, the twin moons would rule that place and he would take care of everything personally. People were still shocked by the information about the Black Moon, and the blue-haired girl knew it was probably the one she had faced. People were now worried about the students who had entered, but Yu said they had the teleport stone, so they were safe. Our boy, on the other hand, was hesitant to enter because of the Silent Libra. If the Black Cult used something like that, it meant they really believed in its power. The situation was dangerous. If it were the old him, he wouldn't have had the courage. However, strangely, ever since he transmigrated, he seemed to be changing. With that, he threw himself in without hesitation, and the Black Shark guys seemed worried about the Serpent Girl. Yu said it made sense, and he mentioned he was running there to save everyone. However, the women commented that ending up like this, he wouldn't do much. The instructor noticed he was acting very strangely, and wondered why he was like that today. The guy was excited until he touched the barrier and got hit by an explosion. Everyone was startled, and he wondered what was happening. Then a girl with 50 bells tied to her appeared, saying he had no chance. From the tattoo on her thighs, the guy knew she was from the Twin Moons sect. She asked if anyone had heard His Highness's order. This girl must make a lot of noise every time she takes a step. She said that as long as she was there, no one would enter. The Black Shark wondered if she already knew about the Silent Libra. Inside, the Serpent Girl was walking around. She had been there for 10 minutes and still hadn't located the spear. The weak ones who had entered with her were already all gone. At least now, no one would interrupt the plan. Suddenly, she felt something, a tremendously powerful aura that she was sure couldn't be wrong. Her eyes shone when she finally located the spear. She was excited, thinking she hadn't made a pact even with the Silent Libra. She had saved herself for this moment and approached, saying the spear wanted her. She was sure it had rejected the others because they were born as empresses, and said the spear must be the kind that liked to be appreciated. Then, acting all cute, she said she might not be very powerful, but as a rank 6 tamer, she would certainly admire that spear a lot. With that, she ran to grab it, saying she would never treat it badly. However, as soon as her hand approached, a light radiated, and an energy prevented her from touching it. She wondered how it was possible that she was rejected. She was sure she was the most suitable person for it. So why had it gone wrong? Meanwhile, others there seemed to recognize her, and one guy said he knew she was the one who had defeated 20 people from his sect. He remembered she had even killed one of his brothers. With that, everyone said they would end her and take the Crescent Moon. However, she started laughing like a madwoman, and people were confused. She began saying she was already in a bad mood because she had been rejected, and now this bunch of trash wanted to die. With that, she summoned her creatures. A monster that was a moon-filled mist, and a creature flying atop a whale. People realized they were all high-rank beasts. She told them to stop praising and show the creatures they had, or everything would go to hell, and ordered the monster to attack. After defeating everyone's creatures, she turned to the Crescent Moon and asked if it had seen that. The power she possesses is far greater than she can imagine. However, the spear remains silent. She starts to get angry until someone says she's a piece of trash from the Black Moon. It's our boy laughing at her and all the anxiety she carries. She turns, recognizing him as the Lunar King, and asks why a 1-star is there alone, saying that even though he has an Emperor-ranked creature, he himself is still very weak. Su Liang keeps laughing. He knows the girl must think he can't summon a creature because of the Silent Libra, so he says that the Serpent's Seat is correct. A simple Emperor can't do everything alone. However, the result here would remain the same with or without the Libra. He warns that before the Twin Moons arrive, she should break the stone and flee. The The serpent girl is shocked to realize he already knew about the Libra but still entered. She doesn't know now whether to flee or to attack him. Su Liang walks calmly. All he needs to do is touch the spear once, the weapon that once managed to cut a star. When he's about to touch it, someone tells him not to think about doing that. It's the serpent girl who sends an attack. All her monsters barrage towards our boy. However, a simple wall blocks everything and she is confused. She has no idea how he did that without even summoning a beast. Our protagonist almost died of a heart attack. Even though the lake girl doesn't have attack power, at least her defense is quite strong. The serpent starts losing her mind and says enough is enough, warning that without an emperor-rank creature, he is nothing. Abyss starts bleeding and a pentagram appears at her feet, ordering the devouring demon king to appear. Dark clouds gather in the sky and everyone trembles. Even the protagonist is afraid of that energy, and our boy knows the crescent spear can't notice the existence of that monster because of the Libra. A giant snake appears and she says he's going to be eaten now. However, our boy stands there without any expression and she doesn't understand why he seems so indifferent. Why does he seem unconcerned in front of a supreme rank creature? However, he's only doing this because he read on the internet that when an animal is big, you have to stare it in the eye to scare it. The girl says enough, if he won't summon, he will die, and orders the creature to attack. The monster slams into the ground and leaps at him. He stands stoically, not moving a muscle. Since the lake girl hasn't consumed all she can, he decides to leave this job to her. The entire place explodes, and when the smoke clears, he's standing there intact. He seems confident, but inside he's thanking the heavens for surviving. Considering the strength of the attack, she would need much more power to break through the barrier. She collapses to the ground, wondering if this is the legendary favor of the lunar god. Our boy leaves, saying she doesn't need to hurry. Once he gets the crescent lands, he'll deal with her. She concludes he wasn't fighting her because he was more concerned with the item, while wondering if his shield could withstand a lance attack. With that, she disables the silent Libra ability. Instantly, the lance senses the copper's presence and awakens. Someone grabs the lance and pulls it from the ground. Apparently, it has a humanoid form too. If the deer was already madness, now it even has romance with the weapon. Seeing the dangerous and the powerful girl appear, everyone starts running in panic. Feeling the energy, Su Liang hopes at least the lake girl can resist it. However, she warns in his consciousness that there's at most a 1% chance of blocking such an attack. He thinks this is madness and wonders how the snake girl planned to survive this. Looking beside him, he sees she has hidden herself among her creatures. The crescent moon then leaps towards him. He stands there knowing there's no way to escape this now. As he turns to say something, we see a few minutes ago, Kat is reported being attacked by the woman inside and questioned how the academy let someone like that slip through. The blonde finds it odd that he was stranger is that the woman outside seems very calm. Why doesn't she seem concerned about the Lunar King's safety? Then suddenly, she also feels something. She mourns that the crescent moon seems to have been awakened. Everyone is shocked and she advises them to run because anyone staying there will die. She also senses another aura and wonders if it has something to do with the Emperor. In the midst of the battle, our boy doesn't know what to do. In 3 seconds, this attack will hit and he will die. Remembering the era of technology, he pulls out his phone in 1 second, sends a message and warns the white flower that he needs help. The crescent moon is about to hit him, and at the final moment, he reaches out. And I thought something peculiar was happening, but in reality, there was an explosion throughout the place. Everyone was thrown back and wondered if it was the Emperor's doing. They were unsure if the Lunar King had died, and in the midst of the smoke, nothing could be found. Some time later, the snake girl began to emerge from the midst of her serpent, wondering what had happened. She saw that the crescent moon was calm again, and wanted to know where the Lunar King had gone, if he had really been killed by what she awakened. She became emotional, thinking that she was the one who defeated the Lunar King. She starts off by saying that Idiot was looking at his phone at the last moment and shouts to the heavens that she was the one who defeated the great king. Excitedly, she turns to the crescent moon and declares that it's hers now. However, strangely, the item awakens again. She knows that this worn-out snake won't be able to resist. In the midst of the smoke, our boy emerges. She finds it impossible that he not only survived, but doesn't seem to have been affected at all. That's when she notices a giant paw on his back and wonders what that is. The creature touches almost the clouds. It was too big for supreme rank, but if it were Emperor, everyone there would know about that thing. She starts trembling with the crystal in her hand. However, she decides it's not yet time. Even if she dies, she wants to know what the Lunar King's beast is. After all, that's the information everyone has been wanting to discover. Gradually, it reveals itself as a supreme rank creature, known as the Cloud Walker who follows the moon. Almost a direct reincarnation of the ancient goddess. The girl falls to the ground wondering how that's possible. That was a monster at least 4 or 5 times larger than her creature, because in terms of size, her creature is the largest of the Black Cult. And the strangest thing is the 1-star tamer being able to use all the creature's power. Our boy is there, happy to have survived. He didn't imagine it would really grow so large. And the worst part is he has no idea how it teleported in a second and saved him. Moreover, the girl on its back is probably the ancestor. The white flower then tells him to dominate the crescent moon quickly or she'll be cut in half. Our boy is confused. He thought she was stronger. However, she says he must have a plan to have sent her there. That's when he remembers that being hit directly counts as body contact. This means he'll be able to see the details in the lunar book. He instructs the system to open the book, and do you remember that the last chapter ended when Su Liang grabbed that book? Since he had come into contact with the spear, he knew it would appear in the book. It says there that this is a legendary spear that has been sleeping for a long time because it lost its sheath. Because of this, it sleeps and wakes up for several years and cannot communicate with any living creature. However, our boy soon realized that this item was of supreme lunar rank. Now that he had information about the Crescent Star Spear, perhaps it wouldn't be so difficult to communicate with it. The problem is that not even this book, which should have all the information, can communicate with it. This means that this spear was born even before the Moon Goddess Palace. But this also means that almost no one has this information. Suddenly, the spear opens its eyes. At that moment, the foolish snake girl is already scared, wanting to run away. She calls for the devourer and orders it to protect her. Something seems to happen to the snake. Meanwhile, the spear glares at the white flower, who asks why it's looking at her like that. With that, the two begin to want to fight. Meanwhile, on the ground, Su Liang approaches. The girl wonders what the Lunar King is trying to do at a time like this. Any attack from that supreme aura would finish him off. However, he tells the Crescent Star Spear to submit to him. It seems to ignore him while the two continue fighting with the aura, until Su Liang simply stretches out his hand and seems to use some power. Of course, the spear, on the other hand, didn't like that. He then speaks the name Frost Flower, which is the sheath of that spear. At that moment, it gets confused and seems to look at him. And Su Liang says that in the name of the lunar goddess, he swears that within 3 years he will bring the sheath back to it. In exchange, however, it would have to guarantee him a favor. The spear remains silent, and the next second it begins to dissipate. With that, it seems to return to its true form, and now he is able to enter its territory. The snake girl wonders if that is even possible, while Su Liang calmly walks forward. The spear forms a whirlpool of water that heads towards him, and their powers seem to merge. The girl quickly realizes that the Crescent Star Spear seemed to have accepted the Lunar King. Even the white flower is impressed by this. She knew very well that with this event, the whole world would go crazy, and our boy was full of confidence. While the fool thought this was impossible, she knows of at least tens of thousands who failed to tame this spear. That's because it's extremely risky for it to accept any contract, since it can only be broken when the person who contracted it dies. That's why this spear usually only accepts people it believes to be invincible. And apparently the Lunar King was considered one of them. The girl realizes she lost the only reason she had for being there. But in this case, she decides that her death will be a message to the Black Moon cult. Once again, she orders the Devourer King to attack Su Liang. He responds that this woman had already seen too much. He didn't like having to silence people, but it was time to finish her. Man, the energy swept through, and the poor snake girl disintegrated. The boy had opened a crater in the mountain. Not even the poor guy expected this blow to be so strong. And the poor girl is there on the side, coughing up blood after her creature had been evaporated. She quickly realized that the servant in front of her wasn't of supreme rank, that at the very least it was the descendant of someone of emperor rank. However, even so, she didn't want to die like this. Passing on the information about the Crescent Star Spear was more important than anything, so she needed to escape. The whole area wasn't sealed yet, so all she had to do was stay away from the Lunar King. At that moment, the crystal in her hand, suddenly it seems to evaporate. Neither the white flower nor the fool knows what happened. The one who had stolen it was the simple, low-rank butterfly of our boy, which brought it into his hand. And he says that in a place full of high-level creatures, no one would pay attention to one of those. The poor girl is left there in disbelief that she lost the chance to escape because of a weak creature like that. Desolate, she says it was too late, but she finally realized why he was the Lunar King. Man and the white flower just gave a little blow, and the poor girl started glowing, saying it was an honor to die for the Lunar King. And that was the end of that fool. From the outside, the bell girl was calling for the Lunar King, who had just come out of that dungeon. He said the serpent's seat was dead and the protection of that place should be removed. Everyone was just paying attention and impressed that he had solved it alone. And he announces that from now on, the Crescent Star Spear would be in his care. The news that the Lunar King now had this spear shocked the entire lunar lineage. The scene shifts to the southern part of the Azure Moon sect. Someone calls for Empress Kang Yu and says something terrible has happened. The Crescent Star Spear had been tamed by the Lunar King. Kang Yu tells them not to panic, as she already knows. The Lunar King is the chosen one of the moon, and that spear favors the chosen ones. The friend says, however, that the spear should belong to her, as she was born as the master of 4 stars and even has a beast of emperor rank. The girl says that's just a detail, and in the end to find out who the moon truly favors. She warns that during the moon festival, all qualified participants from this sect should withdraw. In a coastal part of the northern border, a horned demon servant girl tells someone in a cloak that the two had arrived. She asks the antelope seat if she thinks she would lose once again to the Lunar King. She responds that in a fair fight with just the 2 of them on the battlefield, she's sure she would win. And with that, she would restore the honor of the Black Moon sect. From the sea, someone says they hope the Holy Son of the Black Moon won't disappoint them. The blonde called Fascinating Moon warns that if they lose to the Lunar King, they will have to submit. And another one, dressed in water-like clothes called Yellow Spring, warns that no one should challenge their gods. It replies to both of them that they needn't worry, the plan would work. Now it was time for all of them to head to the Moonlight Academy. They would wait for the festival and kill the Lunar King. At the Star Museum, someone asks if the festival is really about to begin. White Flower says that you don't choose when the festival happens because it can only be initiated when the moon god is at his peak and guides them. Su Lang responds that he already knows all of that because everyone at the academy keeps talking about it. When this festival begins, all moon creature tamers must fight to see who is the strongest among them. The reward for the fights is that the lunar creatures grow at an extremely accelerated rate, and this makes the battles even more intense. The festival doesn't end until someone lights the throne or everyone gives up, and as he told everyone, he would defeat Empress Kang Yu within 3 years. Our boy is wondering why this damn body made such a ridiculous promise like that. How could an idiot like that really believe he was favored by the moon to go around saying such things? White Flower says he doesn't have to worry, as in 3 years, Kang Yu shouldn't stand a chance against him. Besides, he should know that it's extremely rare to obtain pages from the Lunar Tom. These pages allowed someone to form contracts with new creatures even after reaching their limit. Our boy is impressed, considering that he has a book of these pages, so he should be able to form an army. However, he's curious to know how people will get pages from the Tom if he has the entire Tom. She gives him a headbutt and tells him to stop worrying about it and ask her if she could stay out of that place longer. After all, if she could go out in the moonlight, it would help him much more. However, that's when she notices something. The headbutt sent the poor guy crashing into the wall. The poor guy realizes that he can't keep taking attacks from a supreme rank creature. He then sends her 100 venison recipes. Suddenly, some information about the participants starts to appear. Bai Yu is a princess with the bloodline of a human and half-tiger. Our boy is impressed. He thought she was a cat. There's another one called Bai Yao, who is the 4th princess of the Baiyu Empire, the strongest of the humans. He then sends the profiles of both directly to White Flower. She says she'll take care of the one on top, and he'll take care of the one below. Man, what do they mean by take care? Are they going to kill those poor girls? The one sulking isolated because the Lunar King took the spear, and she didn't stand a chance. The friend tells her to forget about that and go to the announcement area because there are better things to do. Over there, White Flower is just observing the girl from the clan of Saints. She had great scent but didn't seem very smart. That's when a drop falls on her nose. Since her powers are reduced in the rain, she decides to leave before her abilities weaken. However, she seems to notice something strange, and a water dragon is coming in her direction. The impact creates an explosion on the path where the 2 girls were going. The knight says he has found one of the 5 supreme targets. Then he warns the child that she has 5 seconds to summon her beasts. He doesn't like killing a summoner with a surprise attack like this. The problem is that from his shoulder, you can tell he's favored by a 7-star tamer. Even more so considering that this creature is at Emperor level and it had become dangerous. Meanwhile, a girl steps out of her house saying it's raining. It was Bayur, asking why they would have to go to a training area at a time like this. That's when she suddenly notices a small butterfly in front of her. It lands on her finger, making her a little flustered. The servant tells her not to mingle with these low-level beasts, but she replies that this is nonsense and is sure even the Lunar King must play with these creatures from time to time. At that moment, someone asks if they also like talking about the Lunar King, and says they'd like to join the conversation. Clearly, it's the antelope seat coming for a confrontation. The servants have no idea who the fool is. Man Bayur, cruel as she is, calls her ugly as hell and tells her to get lost. The poor girl endures the insult, but being called ugly made her furious. She says she's so desolate she could cry. But in this case, she'll have to end her. The servants recognize her as the gazelle with the evil eye, and Bayur already knows that this is the Black Moon cult. Meanwhile, in the Academy's training area, everyone is gathered, wondering why Bayur and Bai Yao still haven't shown up. Oru tells everyone to pay attention to what she's about to say. After 1,000 years, the Moon God's festival is finally going to begin. Today, the Moon Creature Tamers will fight to be chosen by the gods, and every time they win, it will be extremely well rewarded. At that moment, someone says the sacrifices must kill each other until only one is left alive. And with that, the winner would be chosen as the true lunar god of this era. At that moment, Elru tells everyone to evacuate. However, in the very next second, an explosion occurs. She quickly realizes it was a 7-star battle technique. Unfortunately, she only managed to save her own life and is afraid of what happened to the students. But when she looks around, it seems everyone is intact. The blonde is confused, wanting to know what happened. Meanwhile, the moon creature says that it looks like her attack was absorbed. She imagines that to do something like that, it can only be the Lunar King. However, he wasn't acting, he was just hiding. Since they're in the moon battlefield, the lake shield was much more efficient. But even so, it used up 40% of the shield's energy just to save these people. However, he is surprised. It had been a long time since he had felt such anger. Suddenly, a lightning bolt cuts through the skies, and another moon creature appears. Once again, one of supreme rank and 7 stars. This means the enemy side has at least an emperor. However, the blonde yells at her friend and asks if that was necessary since he risked everyone's lives. The yellow creature says he's going to become king and kings don't care about the lives of ants. But the girl responds that this is Twin Moon's territory and they are only on a mission to hold off the vice presidents. Obviously, Oru heard that, and she asks if the blonde isn't the summoner of Fascinating Moon. 5 years ago, she went to their sect and saw her in action. So why is she attacking like this all of a sudden? A yellow blob says it seems she's one of them, and now what are they going to do? The blonde then replies that out of consideration, she'll give her a minute to evacuate all the innocent students. Anyone still there after that time will be shown no mercy. Meanwhile, the Lunar King walks by with his phone in hand and asks if they're from the Fascinating Moon sect. It was quite bold of them to attack this place without giving any warning, and he wanted to know what made the two of them believe they would get out of this alive. At the same moment, he summons the Crescent Star Spear. Obviously, everyone recognizes it. The weapon, considered supreme rank, only needs to glance to the side. He already pulls the spear and charges forward. However, Oru realizes the spear is out of control and can't distinguish between friend and foe. At this rate, this creature will end up killing everyone present. Man, the whole sky was already glowing in the same second. The explosion swept through the place, and when the smoke cleared, Oru was already lying on the ground, exhausted. She was at least surprised she had survived. In the end, the Lunar King didn't allow her to die. But those two in the middle had no chance at all. Fascinating Moon responds that even though he has that weapon, what they did was just the beginning of everything. And with a final warning, he should know that the Emperor would soon be coming for him. With that, the yellow blob begins to glow, and the girl summons a bunch of planets. Once again, the Crescent Star opens its eyes. And now Su Liang is truly in danger. He has already protected himself from 2 attacks, and now the Lake Shield only has 4% defense left. He knows that once this attack happens, everything will be swept away. And the worst part is he won't be able to control the spear anymore, and it might cut everyone down. The problem is, he doesn't have much choice. So the Crescent Spear sends a flurry of cuts. The two who were preparing already realize they're doomed, and the blonde is certain there's no way to defend against this. Man, that swept through the entire city. Far away, it's even dripping on the students. Suddenly, one of them asks what that is in the sky. It looked like there were 2 moons. At that moment, someone is shouting, asking why it's foolish to use the ability to create a full moon for 5 minutes. It's another blonde with ball-shaped legs, saying now they're screwed. The previous blonde apologizes, saying she did it instinctively to protect herself. But her friend says now they'll have to fight the Lunar King under the full moon. And suddenly, the two of them are startled. A giant bunny had appeared. The girl felt like it seemed to be of supreme rank, but something was wrong. And her friend says the appearance of the Crescent Spear seems to have changed as well. How are they going to fight those 2 things at the same time? The Crescent Spear prepares and slaps the bunny, ripping it in half. Man. The other 2, confused, don't know why the crazy spear attacked its ally. But at that moment, it's already turning to look at the 2 of them. Meanwhile, outside the academy, a bunch of servants are angry, not knowing what to do. And the antelope says she doesn't think she can last another minute. Then she calls for the gazelle with evil eye, who unleashes a barrage of lasers. The summoned creatures were all useless. Unable to do anything, they fell to the ground, destroyed. Bai Yao then summons the eagle dragon, which appears gigantic in front of her. The antelope says it took her too long to summon a supreme ranked creature. It was interesting, but it was also easily being crushed. The servant then summons a tiger and tells her to flee to the edge, where she might be rescued. However, the antelope seemed bored, asking if that was all they knew. Once again, the gazelle prepared an attack. And man, this time it was the end for the servants as she struck. Even the poor girl who was trying to escape fell, crushed to the ground. She got up, desperate, already knowing that this was the end for the poor girl. However, she was crushing our boy's little butterfly, which rose up and faced her head-on. And strangely, out of nowhere, the evil gazelle seemed to retreat. Even the girl's legs became shaky. She had no idea how a shimmering butterfly had gotten there. Bai Yao is confused as to why the antelope is so terrified of that shimmering butterfly. But it seems to have saved her. Even though she doesn't understand it, this was her chance to escape. And with that, the antelope falls to the ground, saying that, unfortunately, she wouldn't be able to complete her part of the operation. Meanwhile, Bai Yor and Su Jing are lying on the ground. The water creature is doing the countdown, and White Flower wonders if the water monarch is there too, because the problem would be if she appeared and that guy got involved. The guy then says they've had enough time, and it's a shame they're going to die like this. A vortex begins to appear in his hand, and in the blink of an eye, the 2 of them are being drowned. Some clouds appear, and the 2 begin to float. The knight knows he hasn't heard of such powers, so there's an unknown variable. The 2 turn around, and the guy asks who she is. Obviously, it's White Flower, and all of her style on her little cloud as well. Su Jing asks why that supreme creature was helping them, but she has no choice but to save them, since she promised the Lunar King she would help him. The knight then introduces himself as a supreme-ranked creature, called the Emperor of Autumn. White Flower looks to the side and asks if that little guy named Duangantu can come along. The Emperor looks a little confused by the way she treated this guy, and says that he wouldn't appear unless it was to fight someone of an extremely high rank. She says in that case, it's perfect. She likes to beat up the weak and run from the strong. The guy gives her a slap, telling her to shut up. At the same moment, a block of water rises from the ground, and the poor girl begins to drown. However, suddenly she appears above the block, and her body is enveloped in a purple light. The Autumn Knight says it seems she's a bodiless creature like him. Since that's the case, he was going to use that. Suddenly, a vortex appears above her, which begins pulling her up. The entire place explodes, and he seems confident that she has died. But that's when he notices something strange. There were 2 moons in the sky, so he knew someone had done something unauthorized. In a region like this, full of lunar creatures, he was at a great disadvantage. But he was lucky to kill the enemy so quickly. It would be good for him to hear an explanation as to why someone did something so foolish. However, a long-haired woman appears, asking where he's going. He turns around immediately, and folks, here comes the real danger of the story. White Flower says she didn't even need a full moon to easily finish him off. Man, but the knight, desperate, jumps and asks what she said. But in a second, he notices something strange. A gigantic crystal horn had pierced him right through the middle. He was confused because a power like that was above the supreme realm. The only type of creature that can do that is something that is a direct descendant of an emperor, and not even he in the supreme realm stood a chance. White Flower tells him to know that she didn't want to take advantage of the full moon. The guy begins to disappear, calling for his master, asking him to be careful. With that, the creature evaporates in front of everyone, and White Flower wonders if she drew too much attention. Maybe she did. Given all the destruction happening everywhere, she knows that Guy's leader must be around too. The problem is, she's not quite sure what to do next. 3 minutes earlier in the training area, the crescent star was in the sky, and everyone had already been beaten. Clearly, the poor girl wasn't sparing anyone, until once again, she felt something. The little bunny she had cut was reconstituting itself. As long as it was under the lunar moon, its regeneration would be extremely accelerated. However, the falling star once again charged forward, but now the little bunny managed to defend itself. They love these explosions that sweep through everything, leaving nothing behind in this place. Meanwhile, the Black Moon people are trying to avoid being seen by the Twin Moon group. The girl questions and he tells her to stop underestimating him. He had information about an agent, and that place is extremely secure, until something exploded nearby. The fight between the two had landed right in front of them, and they began to wonder how the Lunar King had discovered them. He tells them to calm down. Maybe it wasn't him. Suddenly, the bunny comes with its ear to its mouth, and the king emerges from inside. Everyone is scared and confused. Su Lang immediately asks what the Black Moon and Spring Path people are doing there. At that moment, the water girl is terrified because she has no chance against the Lunar King under a full moon. He then says that he was just there listening to these people and had no intention of fighting her. However, the other one shouts, declaring that he's there to declare war. Su Liang just stares at him and asks what this business of declaring war is about. The guy warns that as soon as the festival starts, he'll destroy all the legacy he has. That's because 3 years ago, the Black Moon sect's base was completely destroyed. That too was caused by the Lunar King, who at the time also looked at them with the same gaze, as if he were superior to everyone looking at ants. This, he says, is the true nature of the Lunar King. However, Su Lang is confused as he has no memory of the guy who came before him doing anything like that. But now he also has to deal with the Crescent Star, so he'll let it go. And he says that even though an ant's effort is annoying to watch, he'll give them a chance. But they'll have to pay the price for provoking him. He'll send the Crescent Star to hunt them down. If they manage to survive, then he'll grant them a request. He then calls the star, and immediately it charges forward. Once again, an explosion sweeps through everything. And about 10 minutes later, they are lying on the ground, saying the force of that thing was overwhelming. The water girl says it's better if they start avoiding the Twin Moon's order, especially since, considering the power Su Liang showed, it wouldn't stand a chance. For now, they'll have to hunt for new beasts and see if they find something else. Su Liang realizes that this fight has destroyed the academy. What he doesn't understand is how the falling star defeated so many supreme ranked 7-star creatures like that. It was so strong that he was winning against those creatures without even trying. Suddenly, he hears someone crying and approaching, who throws herself at the boy. It's White Moon complaining that she had to fight against a 7-star master. She says she almost got beaten up and it was extremely scary. If it weren't for her, the entire academy would have been flooded. And then she realizes she forgot to revert to her deer form. But our boy just pats her and says everything's fine. She's supposed to accompany him to the Twin Moon Order because he has something to deal with. She wonders if his family will be there, and then she gets a little confused, wondering if they're moving too fast. Even though she's embarrassed, asking if this isn't too soon, she's happy. The scene shifts to the floating island of the Twin Moon Order. Down below, Kang Yu's sect is watching, saying it's really impressive. But the girl named Shoujiu tells them to remember why they're there. The treasures of the great emperor of the eastern region were there in the Twin Moon sect. And no matter what happens today, they're going to take everything. But when they arrive, they're confused. That sect looks more like a city. She starts wondering how much money these bastards make per day. Meanwhile, there's a boy eating a skewer over there. It's Su Liang, wanting to know what a southern tamer is doing in this place. White Flower recognizes her and warns that the girl's name is Xiaoju. It's good to be careful because she's a fan of Kang Yu, who is his enemy and also talks badly about him. Or maybe this is the perfect chance to trap her and make her apologize. Our boy wonders if she's trying to beat up the girl over internet comments. He tells her to forget it and asks if there's anything else she'd like to do. She thinks for a second and sees a sign for an eating challenge. She says she wants to participate, and our boy feels a little embarrassed. But considering how much she's been helping him, it seems he won't be able to say no. The guy then shouts that the registrations are almost full. At that moment, Xiaoju approaches and starts signing up. She knew there were some good prizes, so she wanted to join. Upon hearing that, our boy gets interested. The first prize would be Essence Fluid, and the second prize, a box of face masks. Our boy is shocked by the difference between the first and second place prizes, and he knows that this essence is extremely valuable. However, he's confused about why they're giving away something like that in a competition like this. She says that, as far as she knows, he organized this as revenge against another organization that was against them in the past. That's because they started collecting various butterfly-type creatures, which led to a competition between the two sects. As always, he has no idea what happened, especially since that guy's memories seem all mixed up. However, considering the prize, he was interested. Even more so because there would be other beasts, and with that, he could reveal more pages from the book. A girl then introduces herself and welcomes everyone who would participate. However, everyone was hesitant to go up against Xiaoju. The girl announces that each summoner could bring 2 beasts. However, they should be careful because only supreme-level creatures could handle the spiciness. The people then start serving the dishes, and most of the low-level beasts already give up just from the smell. Obviously, White Flower is eager, and Xiaoju tells her friends not to bother because she wasn't going to lose anyway. She summons a pink butterfly. She knew that even here in the Twin Moon Order, this was a supreme rank and rare creature. However, she saw the guy across from her and wondered why he brought a mid-rank beast to compete. Apparently, he didn't know that if it ate too much of that item, it would end up dying. Su Liang noticed she seemed very determined to win. He would need to summon another creature, but it couldn't be the Crescent Star. If that was the case, he had a certain idea. The girl on the other side didn't understand who he was. The announcer then informs them they would have 10 minutes and tells them to begin. The pink butterfly grabs the first essence and swallows it all at once. Meanwhile, the other creatures, poor things, couldn't absorb it. White Flower was calmly eating one after another, and Xiaoju wondered if it was a supreme-ranked creature. However, it was ridiculous for him to insist like that, as he had no chance of winning this. 3 minutes later, most of the creatures had already fainted. Her butterfly was already full after eating 30 pieces. She asked it to keep going, but the poor thing was clearly not in its best state. She then wondered what that guy was doing. White Flower was eating calmly. The boy told her to stop trying so hard. Xiaoju was confused as to how that creature showed no signs of exhaustion. To win this, she would need 2 supreme-ranked beasts, but she couldn't keep both of them out for 5 minutes. The problem was that she wanted that Emperor Essence, so she wasn't going to give up. So she calls for the Green Moon Spirit. A creature appears on her back. It grabs the dish and starts devouring everything. The two were startled, and White Moon said that Beast would get diarrhea if it ate like that. Xiaoju was struggling to keep the creature in the field, but was certain she would win. The monster had already consumed 72, while White Flower had only 34. However, our boy felt that the time had come, and he called for the moon in the lake. A vortex formed above the dish. Everyone was confused, wondering what had happened. All the food there disappeared in an instant. Poor Xiaoju said that was impossible. However, the announcer said the results were in. Those two were the winners. The fool was devastated, not knowing what to do, and the announcer told Su Liang to follow her as she would deliver the reward. However, that was a little suspicious. Or maybe not. She just recognized that he was the Lunar King and handed over the essence. Our boy realized he had been recognized. She says that many already know he has a white deer pet. The item he receives is the essence of an extremely rare creature. He just needed to come into contact with it and take a snip from the bottle. With that, the girl asked what happened. What he releases is an Emperor-class Sky-type creature, the pink butterfly. He unlocks 50 chances to capture a new creature, and now just by seeing a lunar creature, he will be able to unlock the icon. Although we have taken this time to pamper White Flower, in the end, it was worth it. He then heads to the headquarters of the Twin Moon sect. Walking around and seeing the size of the structure, he realizes that this is the true respect of the title of Lunar King. Wherever he goes, everyone bows, until he crosses a portal. Upon opening his eyes on the other side, he sees a girl in the sky sitting on a moon. White Flower recognizes that as a supreme being, and Su Liang says that she's the one who controls the entire northern region. That was the curved moon of the blue sea. She turns around and says that apparently the Lunar King has finally changed his mind. She says that the festival was delayed by 3 years because of the answer he gave to Kang Yu. However, this is the kind of thing the older folks don't usually like. Our boy once again realizes that the promises of that cursed predecessor weren't helping. But he says he's there exactly because the Lunar Festival seemed about to begin. However, before that, he had a question. How is he going to win in this fight with the emperors? She questions why he's talking about this since he's strong. However, he responds, explaining that the Black Moon cult people will surely try to interfere with him. She tells him to stop joking because it's not worth wasting thoughts on such trivial matters. He realizes that no one knows he only won that day because a full moon suddenly appeared in the sky. Suddenly, a ring appears in front of him, and she informs him that it is a relic of the northern moon god. When he puts this ring on, the festival will finally begin. With that, the ring starts tapping on his finger. The poor guy realizes that the woman has a lot of confidence in him, and there's no way to avoid it. So he accepts with no other choice. Suddenly, a bunch of galaxies appear where he was standing. The representative had been chosen, and the ceremony would begin. However, the system detects something and says it will try again. The system explains that because he has the moon dome, he can choose to hide his identity in the festival. Su Liang wonders where he was teleported to. The system allows him to change his name, gender, and even appearance. However, the ranking couldn't be hidden, since the focus of this test was to make sure no one knew who he was. He would have to summon a creature that no one had seen before. So he chooses the curved moon of the blue sea. Suddenly, he is teleported again, and finds himself in a room with 3 thrones. From one of the doors, a girl enters, saying the moon would not fall, and the night would now become eternal. She sits on one of the chairs. Another girl enters, saying it's been a long time since she saw Miss Shogetsu, but she's excited as the festival is about to begin. Shogetsu seems not to respond, and a short girl approaches the last chair. She looks like she's dying of sleep. The girl with pink hair says it's been a long time since she saw the Queen of the West. The poor girl is struggling to climb the little steps, and as soon as she reaches the throne, she falls back asleep. But then another girl enters. Wait, weren't there only 3 thrones? Where is this one going to sit? It seems she was looking for a man because she saw only women and got angry. Shogetsu wants to know why an ice creature is at the moon festival, saying it would only ruin the purity of the place. The same girl responds that she has a relic of the moon gods, which is why she's there. Now, only one more person was missing, and the ice girl questions why he's taking so long. Another girl says the northern throne is usually occupied by the lunar king, and the little girl says the lunar king this time is a kid who caused a mess 3 years ago, until Claude appears. The poor women all get startled, and here comes our boy pulling this kind of stunt. Obviously, they're all confused, since they knew what the lunar king was supposed to look like. Out of nowhere, Su Liang had been turned into a gorgeous woman. Or maybe it wasn't him, right? We hope not. He or she sits in the chair, and the women wonder why it's not the lunar king there. Shogetsu says that if that's the case, then the people with the relic must have chosen this other person. Since the person in the northern seat has no connection, she's confused. I'm not sure if it's him with this body, or if the curved moon of the blue sea has taken control of him. Either way, he realizes that the power of the tone is stronger than the relic, as it's influencing everything in that place. They then comment that after 10,000 years, the festival would begin once again. A voice says that before the final battle, the moon gods wanted some entertainment. Each should choose a champion they trust, and before all the champions are dead, they cannot attack one another. The kings would be wiped out if they tried to participate in the fight between champions. Additionally, it was forbidden to use a supreme level creature. With that, the order is given for each participant to announce their champions. Now Su Liang is in a tough spot because he didn't want to summon creatures from the Twin Moon Order, as they would discover it was him. All the effort to turn into a gorgeous woman and disguise himself only to be exposed like that. The Ice Girl says it's a shame to have to reveal her trump card so early. Then she shows that the champion of the East will be a crimson butterfly of Emperor rank. Su Liang already knows that she probably has something even stronger hidden. Shogetsu from the central region summons another Emperor creature called Fallen Full Moon, and the Sleepy Girl says she's too lazy. She is the representative of the West and also summons an Emperor rank creature. Now it was just him and the girl with pink hair, and the voice says they have 1 minute to announce a champion or they will be disqualified. The best option would be to summon a creature that was an Emperor of the North, but he doesn't have anything like that. It would be even better if it was something related to him. Thinking about White Flower, he seems to have an idea. So he opens the lunar tom and says to spend 100 openings. After spending almost everything he has, he finds an ancestral Emperor-ranked creature. Its name is Cloud and Dreams. He obtains a lot of information about her. But that's not enough. He has to pay for more information, only has 5 seconds left. Finally, after spending everything he received, he gets the chance to use her in the festival. With that, he and the red-haired girl, who is Kang Yu, is competing with him in 3 years, stretch out their arms. It is announced that the champion of the North would be Cloud and Dreams, an Emperor-ranked creature. Kang Yu finds it strange since she expected something that belonged to the Twin Moon Order. Meanwhile, Su Liang is interested in something else. Kang Yu had summoned something with the same name as the Sheath of Frost Flower. The prefix was the same, so maybe that was what the Crescent Star was looking for. Now that the 5 champions have been chosen, the Moon Festival could finally begin. And with that, the teleportations began. At that moment, the girl who had been sleeping woke up and asked how he summoned Cloud and Dreams. She said that was impossible and was about to ask who he was. But right then, our boy vanished. He's back in the Twin Moon Order, and the curved moon of the Blue Sea calls for him. She asks if he felt that a few moments ago the festival had begun. The time for him to fight for the throne had arrived. He says he knows and that he will prepare, then takes his leave. She says goodbye, adding that the next time they meet, the festival will already be over. And he hopes that when that happens, his contract will also be complete. What she found strange was that he seemed to have asked her to finish off the Black Moon sect. It seemed the boy was confused about his own power, questioning the lunar Tom and fearing the emperors. This meant that his memory was finally returning and she wanted to see everyone's reaction. A red light rises into the sky from the middle of the city. The moon turns blood red. Seeing the moon in everyone's hand glowing red, they wonder if it's the apocalypse. Meanwhile, a servant informs Kang Yu that the festival had begun. However, she seems shaken, saying it was impossible. If the boy had truly been chosen by the moon, that made her useless. The servant then asks if she still wants all the disciples to drop out of the competition. She says not to do that. She had changed her mind. She ordered them to set aside the internal clan competitions for now and send the 5 strongest to the northern region. Obviously, she would also go there personally. That's because she needed to see firsthand what the Lunar King was planning there. The frightened girl asks if that's really a good plan. Sending the 5 strongest from the clan to this competition would basically be a sacrifice, especially considering that it would be a full moon. Only the emperors were supposed to participate in that fight. Up north, our boy is riding his giant deer. The number of emperor-ranked creatures around the academy had gotten out of control. At that moment, someone says that the Lunar King has finally returned. It's King He from the academy, who says that he needs to bring justice because Kang Yu has declared war on them. He sees the message that the 5 strongest from Kang Yu's academy would head north to end the competition. Our boy realizes that this declaration against the academy is actually a way to test him. He tells her not to worry, that he would send the Twin Moon order to deal with it. He needed to rest and just asked for a list of events that would happen. A few hours later, all the creatures were sleeping in bed. Meanwhile, our boy was reviewing the list. Although this festival was extremely dangerous, it still had benefits for him. The Spiritual Moon sect and the Fallen Moon sect were allies and were probably there just for fun. Other sects were extremely weak and he didn't even need to worry about them. The problem was the 5 Leaves sect. That's because their competitor was Shoujiu, who has 2 supreme rank creatures. Considering that the True Saints are even more powerful, he knows that maybe not even the Crescent Star would stand a chance. That was too much for the poor guy, who wasn't even sure how you would handle all of this. He already had 3 extremely strong creatures, so you couldn't say he was weak. However, it was quite different to have to fight multiple empresses at once. He's not sure if he'll really survive until the end of the festival. One of the few options was to strengthen White Flower with a fragment of lunar obsidian. Seeing her lying there, he wonders why she wears that necklace on her head until night. And to help her rest better, he decides to take it off. Clearly, there's some kind of transformation happening, and he says he's going to sleep. A while later, he wakes up. It's still very late, so he wonders why he woke up. Man, she transformed, and that's extremely dangerous for everyone. For him, for me, for you to help. The poor guy was still suffering from intense pressure, and obviously, he was on the verge of exploding. He wonders if she transformed because he removed that necklace. If she woke up and saw this situation, he'd be dead. Man, he's saying that, but he's still getting closer. And the boy keeps approaching, not even sensing the danger, until she starts to open her eyes. And she's confused when she sees the situation. Su Liang makes a dumb face, not knowing how to explain. He starts stumbling over his words, trying to say something. But the poor girl is all confused, not understanding what's going on. That's when she asks where her necklace is. He realizes that now she knows he did it, and he's screwed, so he sends it on the table. She clearly didn't like that, but in a surprisingly calm reaction, she doesn't seem too bothered. She lies back down and he asks if she's not mad that he took off the necklace. She says that when she wakes up, she'll put it back on, so there's no reason to be mad. What she doesn't understand is why he seems so nervous. Did something happen? He says it's just that he's a little embarrassed in this situation. She's still confused, wanting to know why he's embarrassed. Our boy realizes that she spent 99% of her life as an animal, so she's used to not wearing anything to cover her body. She then tells him to answer quickly because she's dying of embarrassment. He says that she was already beautiful, but her human form was so stunning that he was having trouble hiding what he was feeling. And then it clicked for her too. At that moment, she starts blushing, feeling completely flustered. But now we skip to the next day. The sun shines on her face and she wakes up. Our boy tells her to get up. Apparently, she's already gotten used to it, but she's still a bit confused. She says that he always seemed extremely tense, like he was nervous when seeing her. But this morning, he seemed relaxed and happy. Our boy says she's right. After all, until now, he's been pretending to be the Lunar King, dying of fear of being exposed. But last night, he realized something. So he thanks her, saying it was she who made him calm down. The poor girl still has that dumbfounded look on her face, but he says it's time for them to start getting ready for the Moon God Festival. Maybe he's found a way to beat the Emperor. She's happy they're going out, so that's enough for her. He tells her to at least put on some clothes. On top of the mountain, he says he wants to ask her something. He talks about the necklace she's wearing and asks if it's what makes her return to that form. After all, when he removed it, she seemed very serious about knowing where it was. She says it's because it was left by her mother, and that's why she doesn't want to lose it. The transformation was caused by a full moon that's coming, and it had nothing to do with that necklace. The poor guy gets all confused. She then asks why he brought her there and how he's planning to beat the emperors. He explains that they are at the highest tower of the event, where they can even see the elimination area, and that's where he's going to face the emperor. She says she understands, but at the moment, there doesn't seem to be an emperor, so how is he going to train? He says he's going to start a test since he's the lunar god and can communicate with the gods. And then he summons the shimmering butterfly, which immediately flies off in that direction. She questions what kind of test this is since he only summoned a weak creature. But he tells her to look again. A bunch of butterflies had gathered around. That's because the shimmering butterfly's main trait is that it can attract others. This means he can create a storm of butterflies and no one will know which one is his. White Flower stretches to get a better look. Suddenly, there's an explosion of light and they all disappear. She then turns and asks Su Liang what he did. He says it's a secret for now, but during the full moon night, she'll find out. She gets mad because this Dan Alley is keeping secrets. She says that if that's the case, she won't sleep next to him until he tells her. But at that moment, the system signals that he made a contract with multiple creatures. Apparently, he had signed contracts with anywhere from 1 to 1,017 shimmering butterflies. He knows this is the most overpowered part of having access to the lunar tom. Considering this, he knows he's far from reaching the limit of the strength he can have. And if he's favored by the gods, maybe by showing a miracle, they'll appear themselves. Meanwhile, White Flower is just watching, angry from the sidelines, until she hears someone asking what kind of smelly, messy place this is. Observing, she says that not finding a 3-star tamer here is embarrassing. These are the girls sent by Kang Yu to wipe everyone out. The red-hooded girl tells her not to criticize the Empress's decisions because she must have her reasons for sending them to such an insignificant place. The blonde says she knows, but it's such a hassle to be there, until she catches someone looking at her. The poor girl trembles instantly. She noticed there was a creature with a much higher level than hers staring at her. While she was disheartened, another red-haired girl said she felt something too. It wasn't an enemy they could deal with. It was probably the strongest being in that place, so it would be better not to get involved. Meanwhile, White Flower was bored up on the top of the tower. Our boy, however, was impressed that Kang Yu had sent so many people with supreme-level creatures. White Flower explains that he has no idea how rare this type of event is, which is why she's investing so much. He sees that she's not very happy and asks if she's still mad. She just turns her face and he says they should make peace. But the poor guy is being ignored, so he decides to pull a prank. Since she wanted to act like that, he was going to have to use his ultimate move. He starts pretending to call out to people, saying he knows of a deer who enjoys some very peculiar series. She gets mad and tells him not to say that to anyone. He asks what's so wrong with the stories she reads that no one can know. She tells him to shut up and that if anyone else finds out, she'll take her own life. He tells her to calm down and says she should come closer because he wants to know why. He tells her to stop asking questions and get closer, or he'll tell everyone. At that moment, the poor girl realizes she has no choice. She's a little embarrassed, stalling, and slowly she starts approaching. Our boy says he was just kidding, but it's too late. She launches a deadly attack. Miraculously, she falls to the side. Or maybe not so much to the side after all. Actually, the side doesn't matter because she sorted things out anyway. She leans in and whispers something in his ear that we don't get to hear. Then she pulls away, but the warrior is trembling a little, and she tells him to stop trying to take advantage of others like that. It's ridiculous. She says she's tired of him and is going back to the Moon Pavilion. He better not even think about visiting her there anymore. With that, she disappears right in front of him. Our boy feels dejected because she said a bunch of things to herself, ran off, and vanished just like that. He thought that threat was dumb, and what he didn't notice was someone approaching. What he still couldn't understand was how her shyness really worked. That's when the girl behind him asks if she's interrupting anything. She's the second seat known as White Rabbit from the Twin Moon Order. Su Liang tells her she can say why she's there while silently thanking that White Flower ran away at the right time. The girl says they managed to severely injure the Black Moon sect, but they got away. He thanks her and says that on the full moon, everything will be settled. He already figured it wouldn't be easy to deal with an organization with such a long legacy. So he calls for the moon in the lake. It begins to emerge in front of him, and from within it, the crescent star appears. He then speaks to the crescent star, saying they should make a deal. He wanted her to lend him her power on a full moon night. In exchange, he would provide information on where her sheath was. At that moment, she seems to sense something, and her eye slowly begins to open. As soon as she becomes conscious, an enormous light radiates from the top of the tower. The people from Kang's sect are all terrified, wondering who's at the top of that place. The crescent star grabs the lance, and the transformation is finally complete. Seeing that she didn't kill him, he imagines that it was a yes. He then spends 30 points from the tome to gather information about the creature of his sheath that Kang summoned at that meeting. As always, the book starts searching for something. However, it warns him that due to insufficient authority, some information will be hidden. He wouldn't be able to obtain details about the creature called Frost Flower. The only thing he knows is that it is the sheath of the crescent star, one of the 7 sacred weapons of the past. The 7 were the greatest creations of the past and beast-type weapons. Each one possessed a different core ability that allowed a master to advance to the next level. A long time ago, the Crescent Star was separated from Frost Flower during a battle in the east. But the system gives a warning. He would need to form a true contract with an Emperor-ranked creature to have enough strength to survive this fight in the eastern region. He already knows that for such a requirement, she must have a Supreme Lord-ranked creature, and the problem is getting the sheath from them. He then says that Frost Flower is in the eastern region. The Crescent Star doesn't seem to react. He then warns her that to get it, they would have to fight against the Queen of Feathers from the frozen forest. That doesn't seem to excite her much. And suddenly, she turns around, clenches her fists, and our boy is just watching. Currently, there's no chance that the Twin Moon Order could defeat this Celestial Queen. She would be a target dozens of times stronger than Kang Yu, who is already going to be a problem for him to defeat in 3 years. However, he could see that the Crescent Star was desperate. He mustered up some courage and said that for this, he would ask for 3 years. If she gave him that time, he swore he would take down the Queen of the Frozen Forest. The Crescent Star turns, looking a little confused, and he wonders why he promised something like that. He's even feeling insecure that she won't believe he can actually do it. Once again, this woman says nothing. She then speaks, saying that for hundreds of years, the 7 weapons had always been against the Butterfly Moon Goddess. She had always been hostile and harbored hatred. However, she senses honesty, and for a moment, she was happy that he had allowed her to dream. At that moment, our boy is boiling with rage. This damn woman had been pretending to be mute but knew how to communicate the whole time. All that time she spent dancing and ignoring him was apparently just out of spite. However, he decides to let it go, since what's done is done. So he says he'll do his best to keep this dream alive. But he wants to know if she's finally going to give in. She says that the rivalry goes way back, and if he truly wants to conquer the sheath, a true union wouldn't be impossible. However, if he wanted to reproduce, it couldn't be done without the sheath. What does she mean by that? Our boy is as confused as we are. Meanwhile, in the Academy's welcoming hall, the blonde girl is shouting that he doesn't know what the child said, and the goth girl tells her that she'll say it one more time and orders her to leave. Kang Yu had already declared war against them, so trash like her shouldn't be around. Her friend appears behind her and tells her it's better to stay quiet. That girl is a direct descendant of the curved moon of the Blue Sea, and not even Kang Yu could do anything against her. The red-haired girl approaches and asks if she isn't Princess Bai Yu. She says she knows Bai Yu has a sacred body, but she's 10 years too young to be challenging the people there. This so-called sacred body allows any lunar beast to use its full power when controlled by her. The princess responds that if she's going to lose, they'll have to find out, but that building was sponsored by her empire. And as a princess, she gave the order that none of them were allowed in, so they can turn back. The girl starts losing her cool, telling her not to push her luck. But the princess just smiles and throws her aura in everyone's face. However, who shows up is the Silver Bunny from our boy's organization, saying to let them through because it's the Lunar King's order. The red-haired girl recognizes that this girl belongs to the Twin Moon Order, and she simply repeats, telling the princess to let them pass. The princess smiles and tells Sister Bunny that it's fine then. With that, Kang Yu's girls finally enter. The princess then asks Silver Bunny what seat she holds in the Twin Moon Order. She responds that she's the second seat and asks why. The princess just says that in that case, the 12th seat must be only a bit stronger than her. But she guarantees that in 3 years, she'll be strong enough to challenge the first seat. Silver Bunny simply says she's looking forward to the day they can fight side by side. But she's already thinking that this girl is extremely arrogant. Still, once the challenges begin, they'll finally see the power of this sacred body. One night before the full moon, someone hides behind a tree while others are passing by. She's confident because the guards are too weak and no one senses her. She asks if everyone is having fun. A drop on top of a leaf replies that yes, but they should be careful because they're in the northern region. The other responds that they're there out of curiosity to see what happened to the Black Moon sect. Not only do they want to know who will win in the end, but also which beasts favor the moon god. After all, at this moment, he seems like a one-star tamer. So how will he defeat an emperor? She then asks why the guy above isn't saying anything. He replies that the fact the Lunar King is a one-star tamer is actually the most frightening thing of all. Meanwhile, our boy is still up on that tower. Please wake up already. Suddenly, he sees a light in the distance and seems to notice something approaching. Man, it blew up his tower. From below, it was that damn antelope who says she finally managed to kill that cursed guy. She congratulates Black Whale for helping her figure out exactly where he was. The guy asks how they're going to escape from there. She says it doesn't matter because she's taken down the Lunar King. From now on, the gods would look favorably upon her. However, that's when she feels something strange. Up above, our boy congratulates the moon in the lake and immediately calls for the Crescent Star, who now likes him and shows up right away. He tells her to open her eyes, and the moment she does, she's ready for battle. Antelope realizes she's in trouble. She slams her hand on the ground and activates a teleportation zone. A second later, she's gone, leaving the two behind. The guy shouts her name because not only did that damn girl abandon him, but also the beast. The antelope from the girl creates a barrier, but Su Lang simply raises his hand and sends the Crescent Star. The attack explodes the tower and the two idiots disintegrate. Meanwhile, the antelope thinks she's safe, having gotten so far away, until she feels something coming. When she looks back, there's already a green energy. Another poor soul swept away. In the competition arena, Xiaoju is telling everyone that the tournament is about to begin. She's not going to miss a single detail, so everyone better hit that like button. The little streamer is all excited today with hundreds of times more viewers than usual. It's all because the beasts favored by the Lunar King will finally be revealed. On stage, others comment that it's too early to start as the full moon hasn't fully risen yet. The girl tells them not to worry about that because whether they win or lose doesn't matter. As long as they get to witness the battle between the emperors and survive, that's enough. After all, the fight between them is just the beginning of everything. But it would be nice if that damn girl were eliminated. Allowing her to continue evolving would be a problem in 3 years. With that, the host thanks everyone for being there and says she'll go over the rules one more time. To participate, you got to be under 20 years old. Secondly, you had to choose your beast at the start and couldn't summon anything else after the battle began. Additionally, anyone could forfeit in the middle of the fight. Fourth, it was forbidden to attack the audience or the beast masters. She says that's everything and now the tournament will officially begin. At that moment, the princess asks her aunt if she can be the first. Her aunt says not yet because the full moon wasn't in the sky. Besides, she needed to be protected to help the Lunar King in his fight against Kangyu in 3 years. Our boy is watching the battles from afar. Everything had begun, but the real threat wasn't there yet. He can sense that some Emperor-ranked beings are approaching, and that's the real problem. They were probably coming to observe his fight against the Black Moon sect. The Crescent Star then asks if he can feel it. He asks if she's talking about the Emperors. She says it's something much more important. The moon gods were watching his every move. Meanwhile, in the arena, there's an explosion happening. An alligator roars upwards. The poor guy is feeling sad that his favorite beast was annihilated. The blonde is practically falling asleep, saying these fights are getting too boring. She asks how many fights have already taken place and whether it was time for something high-level to join in. Her friend explains that this was the 5th fight. She stretches and says they're wasting time there. Since these fools weren't going to make a move, she would start. With that, she jumps into the battlefield and asks if anyone from the Bu Empire is willing to fight her. The princess on stage is furious, but her aunt tells her it's not time yet and that she should stay still. However, she doesn't care and jumps anyway. The aunt repeats that it's too dangerous, but the princess says it's fine, she just wants to kill some time. Besides, she knows the Black Moon will arrive soon, so she wants to have some fun. The blonde asks if the kid is sure she wants to go up against her. The princess responds that soon the full moon will rise and they won't have time for fun. That's why she wants to take the chance to shut up those disgusting southerners. Obviously furious, the blonde says that won't come cheap, but someone puts a hand on her shoulder. It's the red-haired girl who says she'll take over from here. Her friend finds it strange, asking why she wants to fight a 3-star child. But she starts to imagine that the redhead might have some kind of plan. Maybe she wanted to take this opportunity to accidentally kill the girl. However, the blonde still wants to fight, saying that the redhead is being too arrogant by stealing her spot like that. But the friend just gives her a stare and she quiets down. The redhead knew something was off about that girl. She needed to ensure that none of the 5 were eliminated at this stage, so that's why she decided to step in. The princess says it was a smart choice, since it would have been boring to beat someone as weak as that. At least now they could have fun for a little longer. The redhead then begins summoning her creatures. A supreme-ranked lunar pearl spirit, a supreme-ranked floating water creature, and another supreme-ranked creature simply named Leaf. She then tells the princess to hurry up and summon her creatures, or was she planning to flee the competition? The princess says her companion is a bit constipated, so it might take a while. Everyone is confused by that statement. The redhead says that's fine, she can take as long as she needs. The entire audience is watching eagerly. Suddenly, the princess shows a pill and pops it into her mouth. The blonde says it must be some kind of drug and that she's cheating. However, the redhead knows it's not a performance-enhancing pill, but a cultivation pill. The girl says that would only make sense if she was about to evolve, and that's when the princess opens her eyes. At that exact moment, she advances to 4 stars. The blue-haired girl says that now she can probably use her beast's full power, but even that wouldn't be enough to beat the redhead. However, the princess says that's already enough. Suddenly, 2 lights burst from her. The radiant moon's soul and the sound of the crescent moon. The redhead asks if she really thinks she'll win with those creatures, and warns that no one from the Empire will interfere in the fight. The princess pauses for a second and starts laughing, saying the redhead is hilarious. It seems the Southerners know nothing about the sacred body, but that's about to change very soon. In that instant, the creature beside her disappears, and in the same second is face to face with the redhead. And man, she's about to take a hit right in the face. A small explosion shakes the entire arena. The blonde wonders how she didn't even see the movement. Her friend tells her to calm down a bit, the fight had just started. Obviously, it wasn't going to be that easy. The redhead easily protected herself with her plant creature. The princess's creatures seemed to get annoyed, and unleashed another series of attacks. The noise was so loud that people were covering their ears, but the opponent only wanted to know if that's all she had. Suddenly, the giant pearl appeared in front of her. It launched a direct attack. Man, the poor princess got hit in the stomach, sent flying, smashing the ground to pieces. Before she could get up, she got hit again. Her other creature was closing in from above, but the princess's creature reacted and jumped toward it. Strangely, the other creature stretched out an orb that reflected the princess's image, and then suddenly, it exploded at the tip of her finger, dealing a direct blow to the stomach. With that, the poor girl collapsed to the ground, defeated. Everyone says it was a brutal loss. The blonde says that's the power of the Peach Moon Saint. Clearly, the princess didn't stand a chance. At that moment, a bubble surrounds the princess. The Peach Girl says the fight is over. However, the damage she caused seems to rebound directly onto her. An explosion hits her, and she staggers back, wondering how the damn girl managed to reflect the attack she was going to use to kill her. Worst of all, her creature didn't seem able to defend against it. The poor girl is all worried, not knowing what to do. She moves closer and casts a power that starts healing her bit by bit. With that, she's finally restored. Her friends breathe a sigh of relief. Now she knows the bubble attack won't work. So for now, she'll have to rely on the pearl. Its power was explosive and fast, so it was hard to stop. But suddenly, the mermaid on the ground starts moving. Strangely, she seems to be undergoing a mutation. Even after being nearly defeated, she rises. Peach wonders how that's possible. The attack goes head-to-head with the pearl, which, being distracted, ends up partially shattered. Peach had never heard of a favored beast reviving so quickly. Could the sacred moon body really be that powerful? The princess smiles and says it's time to start everything. This game is coming to an end. The full moon begins to rise, and her creature starts roaring. Everyone knew it would become stronger under the moon's light, but this was a bit much. Peach couldn't believe that a sacred body could make up for the 3-rank difference between them. From a distance, our boy was observing everything, noting that invoking the sacred moon body was truly impressive. Her creature had grown gigantic and leaped toward Peach. With a tail swipe, it hit the arena. The poor girl was worried about being struck, but of course the target was her creature's. Suddenly, the princess's creature leaps into the air and seems to start flying. Peach is confused, wondering what the princess is planning. From above, the creature sends another tail swipe, but then a guy in a hood appears and says she's too arrogant for someone whose only advantage is her body. After all, at this level, she shouldn't even be interfering in this fight. He stretches out his hand, and immediately, a lightning bolt strikes, frying the poor girl. She writhes in agony until the princess's creature falls. The girl is saddened since the time was coming to discover what the Lunar King's secrets were. Then she realizes that not only her phone, but everyone else's phones stop working. Suddenly, a strange bunny appears in the arena, and right away it slaps with its ears. The guy shouts the name of Tinta, and a black wall rises to the sky. Suddenly, a similar, but supreme-ranked bunny appears in the middle of the arena. He says to the protagonist bunny that she looks like a lunar rabbit, but seems a little different. He wants to know if she's male or female, and if she can talk. Seeing that she can't communicate, he says it won't be much fun. Then something starts forming in his stomach. With his ears, he pulls out 2 spike balls. The bunny lets out a roar, and in the same instant, leaps toward him. But man, here comes the attack. It strikes, and the poor bunny is hit hard in the stomach. My friend, she was blasted far out of the arena. The guy, excited, says they're getting closer. Meanwhile, our boy is just hanging out with his butterflies. From atop a building, White Flower asks what they're going to do. He says for now, no one should worry. That bunny's recovery ability is stronger than even the sacred body itself. But suddenly, both the moon and the crescent flower seem to sense something. Above the arena is the Lightning Moon Princess, who sends an attack toward the arena. Once again, the city is about to be completely destroyed. Almost everything is obliterated, except for a barrier they had raised. It had been put up as a countermeasure in case something like this happened. But she's worried about what happened to the Lunar King. Strangely, though the castle he was in seen untouched, the Lightning Moon Princess says that's impossible. How could even an attack like that not make the Lunar King move from his position? But our boy is terrified. The moon in the lake had already protected him from several attacks from the Crescent Star. But this time, her energy was almost completely drained by the attack from the Lightning Moon Princess. At that moment, the Crescent Star steps forward and says she'll handle it. She leaps into the sky and begins floating in front of the moon. She raises her hand as if asking for something. People wonder if this is some kind of counterattack. At that moment, the Lightning Princess pulls out 2 weapons. Both merge and transform into 2 other women. They were eager to fight the Crescent Star, as she was a famous weapon. They charge forward, saying that she only had a chance in the past era because they didn't exist back then. But just then, a sparkle appears on her face, and the fools are wiped out in an instant. The battle had barely begun, and 2 supreme-ranked creatures were already eliminated. The hooded guy spits a little blood, realizing it wasn't going to be as easy as he thought. That's when he sees something forming above everyone, and the Thunder Princess raises a shield. Once again, the attack from the Crescent Star begins tearing up the ground. Chaos is spreading everywhere, and it's raining heavily in the area. The people on the stage are quite calm. Half the terrain had been decimated. Suddenly, the attack stopped. and the blade that was in the sky turned toward the crescent moon. Su Liang was impressed, especially since he hadn't even seen her power combined with the sheath. Peach realized that if he dealt with 3 members of the Black Moon Association so easily, it probably wouldn't be easy for Kang Yu either. Meanwhile, the princess was being pulled from the stage, saying that the Lunar King was truly incredible. However, the Crescent Star tells Su Liang that he shouldn't get distracted, because even that powerful attack can only be used once more under this full moon. He gets excited and says that being able to use it again is already more than enough. He then tells White Flower that it's her turn to step into the field and buy as much time for the team as possible. As usual, she's not too thrilled about being ordered around, but our boy tells her to follow the plan. They're just preparing for the arrival of the real emperors. And that's when he notices something. He was curious to see her appearance under a full moon. Who could be coming and how dangerous will it be? Meanwhile, the mages think that winning a 3-on-1 fight would be good enough. Behind the Black Rabbit, something begins to rise. He turns around to see what it is, and our boy's little bunny is back fully healed. He realizes she has high regeneration and says this is going to be fun. She leaps toward him and he says she's still too clumsy. With that, he starts spinning his ears. Man, she goes head to head without hesitation, but there's something else coming from above. He slices her ear, but it quickly regenerates. He starts to get confused, wondering how a beast could recover so much of his body like that. So he speeds up and cuts her 3 more times. But the next second, she's back again. The poor guy is trying, but he's already exhausted and can't manage to kill her. He begins to think that maybe the best idea is to trap her and get out of there. With that, he throws his ears up and announces that he's going to finish this. He lands a full-on attack on her. Once again, an explosion rises, destroying everything. Peach is impressed that the ground had been torn apart, or rather, he had dug a hole. The excited enemy says that now, with kilometers of distance underground, she won't come back. Meanwhile, our boy is impressed with the strength of his bunny. But now that she's been buried, he's unfortunately going to have to call for the Crescent Star. However, that's when he notices something strange. The ground in front of the Black Rabbit begins to tremble. And look who's back from the hole. Man, she's looking a little purple, isn't she? The enemy realizes she's evolved into a mid-level rabbit. He'd never heard of a creature being able to change species like that out of nowhere. What in our boy's book it says that exposure to or fluctuations in emotions can speed up evolution. That's when he realizes that she'll keep getting stronger as time goes on. However, the other creature isn't thrilled, saying he'll never fight equally with such a weak lunar rabbit. He charges at her and delivers another ear strike, but this time it lands cleanly and does no damage. Now he realizes that she's truly become much stronger than before. He decides to throw himself at her to finish things once and for all. But man, something cut the guy. She sent a small explosion with her ear that wiped everything out. From a distance, the hooded man is in bad shape, with even his ink dissolved. When someone approaches, he's startled. I'm also getting scared. Look at the danger coming. On the full moon night, White Flower arrives. Thankfully, she follows YouTube guidelines, and the guy is shocked that he has a humanoid beast. Now he knows who took down that water emperor from before. The gigantic Thunder Princess casts some spells, but White Flower easily defends herself with a shield. The hooded man says that since she's alone, she might as well give up. But White Flower just tells him to stop talking nonsense. She's only there to make him summon his last creature, so he should stop stalling. But the guy unrolls a scroll and begins to unravel it. He warns that he can obtain the ultimate technique of every creature he defeats. At that moment, she would have to face more than 10 supreme beings. And after that, they'd figure out which one she would replace. But White Flower just says he's noisy and that she'll show what she's capable of. She raises her arm and announces that the move can only be done under a full moon. Here comes another flash of light, or maybe not. She changes form to the Princess of the Clouds and draws 2 katanas. The woman already realizes those are Imperial weapons. White Flower stared at her for a second, and in the next, she was already behind her. Man, that strike must have hit clean. The poor woman was completely sliced up, and poor Peach couldn't even see the movement clearly. Truly, the power of the Cloud Empress was much more terrifying than she had imagined. It turns out the shield of that wretched mage who never dies was what was destroyed. She then says that based on the dissipation, it must be a creature that negates damage. The scroll flies back and tells her not to get too confident. And then he summons the shining winged butterfly. That seems to impress White Flower, and suddenly a barrage of lights rushes toward her. She easily dodges the first attack, but it ricochets and comes from behind. With that, the poor girl's outfit is cut. Thankfully, we're still family friendly. But suddenly, everything explodes in the sky. She appears behind the scroll and asks if he's going to use those mediocre techniques again. The poor guy wants to know what happened, but White Flower just tells him to stop relying on those with less power than him. And now she cuts the scroll for good. Surely it's dead this time. Once again, the hooded man laments his defeat. White Flower says that if he'd have followed the initial advice, he wouldn't have suffered so much. He realizes he was wrong to think he could defeat the Lunar King, and then he tells the Lunar Palace to sign the transfer contract. Meanwhile, the fox girl with her water drop is watching everything. The drop says that the girl will become the next snow queen. The fox, however, says it's impossible for someone like her to become an ice queen. Suddenly, an aura rises. Man, the entire city is being swept away. Our boy is being carried by the butterflies. White Flower was thrown back. He asks if she's facing an emperor, and she says she's not sure. But one thing's for certain, this person is already halfway to becoming one. Suddenly, a giant green orb appears in front of her. From inside, a foot begins to emerge. A lazy girl steps out. Both Peach and the fox seem to recognize her as a warrior from the Supreme Palace. They're all wondering why the Black Moon would summon something like that. The system alerts that the moon of the palace has a high concentration of Emperor's blood, and it's the strongest in the supreme rank. The princess says that woman is shameless, and all of the Twin Moon Order would have to take her down together. She seems quite lazy, until she suddenly notices something. The Thunder Girl asks what's wrong, and she says that the moonlight there isn't normal. Also, there were two glowing butterflies, which also didn't seem natural, considering they were in the northern region. The guy asks what she means by that. He says it doesn't matter, half the butterflies are here, but it won't make a difference. The important thing is the opponent in front of her, whom she recognizes as White Flower. She prepares a power in each hand, and suddenly claws appear in their place. White Flower just gets ready without saying a word. She vanishes immediately, and the two collide above the arena. While they zigzag back and forth, no one can even see what's happening. People are amazed that White Flower is actually going head-to-head with her, and Su Liang had no idea she could handle so much intensity. This was a supreme-level battle on a scale he had never seen before. This kind of thing, humans like him couldn't even intervene. As soon as White Flower hits the ground, the woman prepares an explosion and sends a barrage of green light. The poor thing looks clueless, not knowing what to do. And man, she's swept away. What is this, my friend? She cut the mountain in half. It seems she shifted into her spiritual form and just barely dodged. But it was close. Our boy almost died without realizing it. Once again, his bunny saved the day, or he would have been hit head-on. And the bunny reconstitutes itself, and Su Liang knows. The more emotions it carries and the longer it's under the full moon, the stronger it will become. This means it's still far from its limit. And once again, it throws itself into the fight. Meanwhile, poor White Flower is taking a beating. The green girl is the moon of the Treasure Palace, but I'll just call her Treasure to keep things simple. At that moment, Treasure takes a grab from the bunny. She asks how they have the nerve to make such a sneaky attack. And man, she's slammed into the ground. White Flower slowly approaches. She prepares her two blades, looks down, and sends an explosion in her direction. The hooded guy tells the Thunder Girl to help. She raises her hands to the sky, gathering all the power she can. But strangely, the clouds seem to dissipate. She's confused, not understanding what's happening. Beside her is a greenish figure staring. She wonders when that damn crescent star got there. But she tries to conjure power again, knowing she needs to save that girl. Yet strangely, the crescent moon ignores her completely and walks away. Another explosion added to the collection. The bunny and White Moon retreat, and Treasure asks how two useless beings like them dared to attack like that. She begins to prepare a sphere in her hand and says that now they will know fear. A barrage of green moons is launched. Once again, White Flower is torn apart, but she easily dodges in her astral form. Meanwhile, the bunny, on the other hand, is getting shot at. She has to hide behind the bunny. That's because the ability has a usage limit, and if it exceeds it, she'll actually be cut. For now, she also has to rely on this regeneration to stay alive. The problem is that won't last forever. She knows at most she'll gain a minute, but then she notices something. A sequence of attacks is coming from behind. They strike the green moons, and Treasure wonders what's going on. Obviously, it was the crescent star that had joined the chaos, and Treasure says that damn star arrived at the wrong time, just as she was about to win. But White Flower found the opportunity she needed to finish this for good. She stretches her blades to the side, and they dissolve. She places her hand on her head and sends a little signal. Our boy wonders what kind of shameless pose that is, but the power begins to accumulate. She begins condensing all the energy around her, and from a distance, Treasure has no idea what's happening. A tornado forms behind the rabbit, and she starts wondering who this girl really is. White Flower reveals that she is the true moon chaser, and if she survives this attack, maybe she'll be accepted as an apprentice. But Treasure laughs, saying she's old enough to be her mother. A green and black circle starts forming in the sky. Treasure warns that everything will turn to ashes. But White Flower just extends her arm and summons a giant deer in her direction. It materializes and headbutts the circle directly. Once again, there's a small explosion. Smoke covers the entire field, and no one in the audience has any idea what's going on. The hooded guy laughs, saying it's ridiculous that the Lunar King had no chance against him. I don't know what that fool is talking about, especially since our boy is standing there quite calmly. However, he looks to the sky and wonders if the gods enjoyed this spectacle. But now that the appetizer has been served, it's time for the banquet. The audience is scared because everything has become dark. The moon begins to be covered, and Su Liang says that lately his heart had been racing. But in this moment, right before the fight with the Emperor, he feels completely calm. White Flower asks if he's really that confident, and he replies that he doesn't see how it's possible for him to lose. White Flower, startled, asks if he's sure, He says yes, even though it sounds arrogant like the old Lunar King. The people of the Black Moon brought back some old memories in his head, but they seem more like hallucinations than memories. He remembers growing up with the girls of the Northern Palace and always being treated with great care. He recalls that when he was younger, to verify the authenticity of his memory, he wrote a book in English. But all these memories were erased by an entity. The truth is, there never was an old version of him. He was always himself. He was born into this world with the memories of his former life on Earth. However, at some point, they were all erased. Until 2 months ago, when he hit his head and finally remembered everything. But that already showed that there were some extremely dangerous entities. Just as the people of the Black Moon said 3 years ago, he had a very important pet. And he knows that this is the key to becoming God's apostle. A giant paw begins to descend from the sky. Horns and long hair. Miraculously, I thought it would be a girl, but it's actually just a giant goat. And man, talk about giant. The colossal creature stares down at the entire arena. The arena still has that barrier, but it won't last much longer. Our boy knows that as soon as it falls, innocence will die. The giant goat says that the Black Moon cult has become decadent for summoning her for something like this, and asks who the opponent is. He asks for help in killing God's apostle. She looks in disbelief and says that for them not to be able to handle a weak region like the North, the organization has truly fallen. But since that's the case, they'll have some fun before the end. Su Liang stands there with his butterflies, all stylish. But suddenly, he pulls a liquid from his pocket. He tells White Flower that he pulled out Wing Fang Tong body fluid. That's right, folks. And our boy confidently spills a drop of it. No one knows where it's coming from, just like them. Obviously, they're confused, wondering why he threw it on the ground. But he says it will help them find an easier path. White Flower remains confused, not understanding what he's talking about. Suddenly, a buzzing sound is heard behind her. Everyone in the audience turns to look. From afar, a strange yellow cloud is approaching. Our boy says he has always been the owner of the Moon Book, and as the apostle of the northern region, he would gather all the butterflies, and at the same time sign a contract with each one of them. A few days ago, he sent a message to each of the others he already controlled, and all of them from various regions began to escape. Even those who had formed contracts had their contracts broken. And to distract everyone, he brought butterflies from every part of the north. All of this was to prepare for the battle with the Emperor. At that moment, he finally opens the book. The girls wonder if the Lunar King is really going to summon an Emperor-level creature. Everyone is eager to know what he's going to bring to the table. Suddenly, all the butterflies seem to separate from him. Someone calls them idiots and says the butterflies are retreating. But Peach already knew. Soon that place would become a battlefield between emperors. He looks up the sky and asks if the moon goddess is watching, and if this opening of the festival was enough to whet her appetite. If she was watching, it was time to perform a miracle. The goat thinks that even though these creatures are weak, having so many of them is annoying. As much as she wanted to slap that kid, she didn't want to do it. She knew that if she wiped out so many lunar creatures, she would never receive their favor. And our boy is smiling, thinking that everything is almost ready. He had made a contract with over 1,300,000 butterflies. Suddenly, the entire book starts moving. He was only hoping for another page. He knew that was the hardest page to turn in the history of the Moon Book. He never imagined that the information about the 7 weapons had been hidden. This book held many secrets that had been erased from his memory, and he knew that with the original power it should have contained, he would be much further along by now. Suddenly, he feels something, and that page begins to turn. A golden energy rises into the sky. The fox is startled. She felt the aura of a terrifying emperor and wonders what it could be. Suddenly, Kang Yu reveals herself hiding there. She says that indeed the Lunar King will meet his end at this festival. With that, she starts to disappear, saying there's nothing more to see, and she vanishes into thin air. The fox is confused, wondering how long that wretched girl had been standing right behind them. As Su Liang's butterflies seem to start gathering, a huge wing appears in the sky, and the people in the arena are even crouching down. But one is even crying, saying she never expected to witness such a miracle in her life. The hooded man asks the goat if she thinks she can beat that thing, to which she suddenly giggles and turns around crying, saying there's no way to beat that thing ahead. They had lasted a long time, but the Black Moon cult had come to an end. There was no way for them to win anymore, so it was time for everyone to give up. They would have to close the curtain because they didn't belong to this era. He's confused, not understanding why she's so afraid. And the goat says she's lived a long time, but has never heard of a true apostle of the gods. However, it seemed there was one before her now. What appears on the field is the butterfly guarding the palace. The hooded man wonders what kind of emperor-level creature that is. It merely flaps its wings and an earthquake begins to sweep through the entire region, knocking everyone out. Even the thunder giant collapses to her knees. Not even our boy's creatures can stay on their feet. The poor fox is taking a hit by association. No one told her to stick her nose where it didn't belong. She knew that not even in the entire central region was there a being as powerful as that. And man, if that goat was gigantic, that creature was the size of a planet. The poor goat just says it's an honor to die this way in this life. Standing there, facing it, saying that after her death, She hopes to become a part of the moon's light, so that she may exist in all the generations to come. Man, I think she's really been swept away. Meanwhile, the two fools and the protagonist are unconscious on the ground. It seems the boy is regaining the memories of truly being the lunar god, and that scene reminds him of something that had already happened. 3 years ago, he had devastated everything, and apparently, nothing had changed. Back then, he was already called the Lunar King, and this time, the events didn't make him lose his memory. That means summoning this creature wasn't related to that. He then begins to worry about the disaster he caused. The entire barrier had been destroyed. However, it seems that everyone had only lost consciousness, so most likely the moon and the lake managed to protect them one last time. Probably the creature he summoned had no idea he had lost his memory. And if there's one thing he learned from this battle, it's that he needs to remember who he truly was as quickly as possible. The poor remnants of the Black Moon cult lay defeated, their leader having sacrificed 20 years of life to drain energies from the Black Moon to survive that attack. But Su Liang simply tells him that today's battle had no meaning at all. The old man agrees, saying that's true, since the gods weren't watching him. Our boy asks why he threw his life away like that. Was he hoping that festival would restore his energy? The old man pauses and laughs, telling the Lunar King not to ask something so ridiculous. He was also a member of the Moonlight Clan, so it wasn't strange that he wanted to surpass the strongest person of this generation. As long as he had the chance to win, he wouldn't give up his life. It was just a pity that all of this was a farce by the gods, as the gap between them was far too great. Our boy then asks why he tried so hard to please the gods. He should forget about all of that and think that at least today's battle had been fun. The old man asks if he had really enjoyed it as well, and if he had been strong enough to at least give him a bit of a headache. Su Liang says yes, he gave it his all in this battle. And now that it's all over, he had no reason to insult the man anymore. The old man fades away, saying it was good to disappear with these comforting lies. And then he tells Su Liang to remember what he's about to say because it's related to his memory loss. In the battle from the past, he had also summoned the Palace Guardian, which was the 8-winged butterfly. The fight that day erased 1/3 of the entire northern continent. But strangely, no one wondered what had happened. It seems everyone forgot what occurred that day. He mourns that what happened back then was clearly not something simple, and he says Su Liang should start taking care of himself. The plans the gods had for him were far more unpredictable than he thought. With the end of that man came the end of the Black Moon cult. However, Su Liang wasn't feeling happy. The memory loss he suffered had nothing to do with the Black Moon cult, and that existence that caused the disappearance of 1/3 of the North was far beyond his reach. He clenches his fists but quickly relaxes. At this moment, there was nothing he could do about it. Strangely, his heart felt heavier than ever, even though the crisis had been resolved. But perhaps, even for a short period, he could relax a bit. And with that, he faints in the middle of everyone. A few hours pass, and the fox says it's crazy that just the distant energy caused them all to pass out like that. The only downside is that they must have missed the end of that fight. But then she notices something that changes her expression. There was a giant deer above the skies, glowing. The little bunny was also walking on the clouds, and she asked the current sky goddess what she thought of the spectacle she put on. The opening she created during the fight had been spectacular, but the deer tells her not to interfere with the Moonlight Festival anymore, and that from now on, she would no longer be free within the Northern Territory. The little bunny stays silent for a second. Then she changes her expression, saying that the deer is cruel. She starts walking away, saying she misunderstood and that she never interfered in that festival. After all, the person who won was the boy with the moon god's book. And at least now, there was no need to worry about finding another perfect candidate. Sometimes I get confused by this story too. But I think these are two gods above the moon discussing what happened down below. That great deer is the current great goddess, who's just staring down at poor white flower, unconscious on the ground. She sees our boy with his arms wide open like a fool, and she lets out a small smile. Half an hour passes, and that fox, who's just there as a spectator, is impressed she saw gods right in front of her. She finally explains that the deer is the one who created the 7 legendary weapons. Her name was Calamity of Pure White, and she hadn't been seen since the last time the festival took place. It seems the bunny and the deer are enemies wherever they come from. The little droplet says those beings would never care about them. It's better to pretend they didn't see anything and never speak of it to anyone. But someone asks what they're talking about. One of the girls from the prayer group shows up, asking if a divine creature had really appeared. The two fools are shocked because they didn't even notice her approaching. The little bird in her hand says not to worry, the divine being had already left. But the fox just points and tells her to stop playing tricks and say who she really is. She introduces herself as a simple mortal, the administrator of the pet area of the Twin Moon Order, which belongs to our protagonist. She never imagined that two people from such a distant empire would be there, so she came to apologize. And this person in her hand had something to say. The bird suddenly locks eyes with them. Apparently, it's not weak, as the two are startled. She kneels down and seems to recognize the gaze. The little bird flies into the air and begins emitting a light. Man, and now it's all hairy. That's the Guardian of the Moon, part of our protagonist's sect. She warns them that they invaded the north without her permission, so they're banned for a year from coming to that place or transmitting any information. If she hears of anything like that, the two will be exterminated. She says she cannot interfere with the Moonlight Festival. But when it comes to the north, she still has the authority to punish whoever goes there. Now it makes sense why her name included Sagittarius. Man, her strike created a futuristic weapon with constellations. But alright, she kicks with an impact. I thought it would hit those poor folks in the fight, but no, it hit the Moon Goddess Palace. The place as always is swept clean, and the old ladies are all scared. But the guardian of that palace also appears. She asks Sagittarius to calm down, saying the Moon Goddess Palace had no ill intentions toward her. And then she asks who gave permission for that wretched girl to leave and cause trouble. At that moment, the princess from the beginning shows up. Someone says the fourth concubine will be expelled in 3 days, and she just says yes. Apparently, she was the fourth concubine because she was already in some abandoned ruins. Sometimes I don't understand what's going on either. The place exploded, the girl left, and she got expelled. Who knows? Looking at a picture of the girl, she wonders why they say the northern part doesn't exist. She wanted to know what happened 3 years ago and if he already had an answer. The famous Su Liang, Moon God, and her nephew. Our girl, who's still unconscious in the arena, starts to wake up. He opens his eyes and finds himself in a strange sky where he's supposed to receive his rewards. But when he looks to the side, he sees something strange. There was a like on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.